and to protect your home from an oncoming wildfire. It's called Defensible Space, and it works. Go to keeporegongreen.org to learn more.
Romans 1:20 tells us God's power is revealed in creation. Yet 2 Corinthians 4:4 reminds us that Satan has blinded many to the gospel. At the Life Outdoors, we've seen the truth of God, His eternal power and divine nature displayed in every mountain and stream. Follow along and let's wake the wild within. The mountains don't lie. Where there's truth, there's Jesus.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is your watchful eye on the nation's capital. Every weeknight, covering current events, issues of faith, family, and freedom from a conservative Christian perspective.
Who is really upholding the law? And
Tony is the president of the Family Research Council and your leading source for what's really happening in our nation's capital.
that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Don't miss Washington Watch, weeknights at 6 on the Dove TV.
A ministry moment on the Dove.
I am so often so human, I get into trouble. I want to be more like Jesus and less human. I want Jesus to be so indwelled in me that through the power of His Holy Spirit, I choose Him over the world. Every moment of every day until He calls me home. Chuck Swindoll said, people will continue to live in blissful ignorance, rejecting the testimonies of godly men and women until the world undergoes cataclysmic change. May God quicken us with the ears on our heart to the testimonies of those around us who are telling us, let me share what God has done in my life. And then let's tell someone else what God has done in our life. Are we like the inhabitants of those ancient towns? Are we rebellious today? Are we turning our backs on God? Are we desiring the here and now over the there and when? We hardly need more evidence that the world is on fire, and we need to move with haste. Evidence abounds that Jesus is coming soon. Are we ready for His arrival?
A ministry moment on the Dove.
You're watching the Dove TV, encouraging and informative for Salem, Portland, and the Willamette Valley. Seen on KWVT 17 and these Dove TV.
All right, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mornings on the Dove. Happy Thursday to you. This is where it happens. And if you found it, just leave it right there. We'll take care of you for the next couple of hours. Good morning, I'm Perry. That is Jerry Bilden. They're the only one on the face of the earth.
Thank goodness.
Amen to that.
Pam just seconded that.
You know, and I get battle pay and workman's comp co-hosting with this guy. Anyway, good morning to you. Happy Thursday. Boy, there's a ton of the news. By the way, just to let you know, within a few moments ago, the big, beautiful bill got through the House.
I saw that, yeah.
So it's on its way to the Senate, and it'll get bounced around over there. They're hoping this thing will get through by July 4th. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's got another round of banging. And so, anyway, good morning to you. Weather-wise, got a few clouds out there. We'll talk about that going into the long Memorial Day weekend. And hope you're safe and enjoy. The weather's going to be really perfect. But remember what the weekend is about. So anyway, good morning to you. Anything special?
Well, yeah. First of all, it is National Maritime Day, recognizing the launch of the maritime industry in the United States. This celebration also honors America's merchant marines for their contributions and sacrifices for our country. Do you know anybody who served in the merchant marines?
No.
I do. One older fellow, when I was young, he used to tell me about his travels all around the world. I was fascinated with it. Not fascinated enough to do it, but fascinated to watch it. In fact, I have found on a YouTube channel, a guy's got his own channel. He's a deckhand on different ships, container ships, cargo ships, really? Different. And it's just fascinating to watch where he goes and the jobs that he does to stay employed on the high seas. But I would have a feeling that after a while, looking at the horizon where the sea meets the sky, you know, after a while you'd want to get back on solid ground.
Well, it's like anything else. It becomes a lifestyle and an addiction.
Yeah.
I've been on boats that get out there and you don't see the shore. And
Well, that is a unique feeling. When you do get far enough out, you don't see any land.
yeah.
It seems like a very big sea, doesn't it?
It does,
Yeah.
and you have the same thing when you're above the clouds flying.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
You don't see
Okay.
the earth, you don't see anything else, you just see clouds.
Okay.
And you're trying to figure out, am I really flying in the right direction? That's where you have to believe your instrument.
Trust your instruments?
Yeah.
All right.
So-
Well, now on another note, the source of concern probably for many spouses, it's National Buy a Musical Instrument Day. Don't ever say that to a guitar player. Do people collect guitars?
Well,
and such
that's
things?
another addiction.
It is.
Is there counseling for this?
I bet there is. I wonder.
Is there a pill for it?
I don't think so.
Even when I interviewed Dr. George Barna,
Yes.
on the back of his wall is a whole thing of bass guitars.
I get distracted sometimes during those interviews because I'm looking at what he's got on his wall.
He's got a bunch on his wall.
And he's got some great stuff on his wall.
So it's an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if if our buddy over there can get you some counseling or something.
Well, they even cater to this. Somebody gave me, a very sweet person gave me a T-shirt that says you can never have too many guitars.
Well, anyway, Doug, I don't know. Maybe that's a new branch in your ministry over there.
It could very well be. It's also National Solitaire Day. Do you remember the last time you played solitaire?
Oh, gosh.
Huh?
You know what's interesting about solitaire?
What?
It's a great time consumer on your phone when you're bored.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Or at your computer at your desk.
Yeah, can you cheat on solitaire on your phone?
Try it.
Did you know that solitaire was also known as Klondike?
Oh.
Klondike sounds like an ice cream bar to me.
That's all I wanted.
Well, with that in mind, one thing to eat, and it is sweet, it's a dessert type. It's National Vanilla Pudding Day. Ooh. We use this as an excuse to enjoy a delicious dish of cold, creamy vanilla pudding. And did you know that puddings that we enjoy today that are not as desserts weren't commonly known as pudding in ancient times during on ancient dinner tables? Most medieval puddings were meat-based and seasoned with herbs and spices. Even sweetened cooks usually served them hot. Toward the end of the 18th century, people more than likely made puddings from grains or day-old breads and nuts, fruit and meats. They used these puddings to stretch meals for large families.
Oh.
And then they evolved into what we're looking at right now. Look at that. Vanilla pudding with raspberries on top. Oh, man.
All right, so, well, you can buy these puddings now in little containers.
Yeah, pudding cups.
Yeah, they're like 4 in a little thing.
Yes.
But still the best is Gerber's baby pudding.
Oh, I used to feed my
Gerber's
kids
baby
that
pudding.
stuff. It was like one for you,
Little
one
jars
for
you
me,
get on.
one for you, one for me.
Yeah.
I remember way back when I was in school, I was summer jobs. I was working out in the orchards. I was working out in the peach orchards, and my mom would pack my lunch, and she'd put one of those little pudding cups in for me.
No.
Never forget, this takes me back.
Okay,
Thank
Mom.
you, Mom.
Hey, Mom, you're the mom.
Also, one little fact here, we know that a phobia is the fear of something. Mm-hmm. And here is a phobia with one of the coolest names I ever heard. It's nomophobia. Nomophobia. It is the fear of not having a mobile phone. And obviously people are increasingly reliant on their phones these days. For some, the attachment can develop into a serious issue. Those with nomophobia, and abbreviation of no mobile phone phobia, that's what it's shortened from, have a fear of not having their phone with them. They get equally freaked out when their battery dies or there's no network coverage available. One 2019 study in the UK found that 34% of men and 52% of women currently deal with some form of this condition, again called nomophobia.
Nomophobia.
How about that?
All right. Well, I have to tell you, if you put your phone down and you can't find it, you have nomophobia.
You can feel it.
Oh, you can.
Absolutely. I go someplace sometimes, and if you have an Apple Watch and they're connected, you'll get far enough away from your phone, your watch will tell you.
Oh, I haven't turned that one on.
Oh, man, yeah.
Okay, well, I have to
It has
tell you,
saved my bacon before.
I have discovered something with my Apple Watch.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it tells me how much energy I have left.
How's that working?
You know, I have to tell you, it's pretty interesting. And, you know, I started making fun of it.
Okay.
It is so accurate. I actually, because I put this on about 4 o'clock, 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the time I get home and we have dinner and we kind of unwind and get down, I'm looking down, it's got 5%. And that's just about the time I go to bed.
It's got you figured out well.
So it's got me really going. I'm going, well, I found a new feature on the iPhone.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you this. Now, this has happened to me more than once. You know, I leave work, I'm on my way home, I'm part way home, and you know, my commute, you know, is substantial.
Yeah.
And you know, you're halfway or better, and you realize you don't have your phone. What do you do? Do you stop, double back, go back and get it, or say, I'll get it tomorrow? What say you?
You would go back and get it.
Absolutely. Do I have nomophobia?
Oh.
Huh?
And you know, if you don't say things absolutely right, you have Pamphobia. And he does the weather here.
A weak front is moving over the top of our region, bringing showers before a drying trend into the weekend. So today in northern Oregon and southern Washington, a chance of showers, then clearing to partly sunny with highs in the mid-60s for Vancouver, Portland, Wilsonville, and McMinnville. Continuing down the Willamette Valley with a slight chance of showers, then partly sunny with daytime high temperatures in the mid-60s for Salem, Albany, Corvallis, and Eugene with a light southwest wind. A slight chance of showers across central Oregon, then clearing to partly sunny in low 60s for Prineville and Bend and near 59 in Sun River. Over in Boise, Idaho, mostly cloudy, then a slight chance of thunderstorms in mid-70s. Along the Oregon coast, decreasing clouds becoming sunny with daytime high temperatures in the low 60s for Coos Bay and mid-to-upper 50s for Port Orford, Brookings, and Crescent City, California. In southern Oregon, sunny for the Rogue Valley with daytime highs in the low 70s for Grants Pass and Medford and near 68 in Ashland. In the Klamath Basin, sunny with highs in the upper 60s and lows in the low 40s. Into northern California, sunny with a high in the low 70s in Wairika. More sunshine as we move down with daytime high temperatures in the mid-80s for Redding, Chico, and Sacramento with a light southwest wind. In the Bay Area, sunny skies with daytime highs near 77 for Santa Rosa and Napa. Sunny in San Francisco with a high near 66 and a west wind gusting up to 21 miles per hour. And today in San Jose, sunny and near 77. It's a look at your Thursday weather on the Dove.
And good morning to you. There is a picture that we love to see. It's a live shot from the top of the east side mountain of the Rogue Valley called Roxanne. And the sun's coming up between the broadcast tower and, well, you can't even see it, but the Mount McLaughlin's right behind that tree, just to the right of that tree.
Beautiful.
Beautiful sunrise. It's got some clouds mixed in, so beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Well, here is a morning question for you. Do you know and do you have the joy of the Lord? Well, Pastor Jack Hibbs is here.
Everything's going my way.
Well, you know, I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Yeah, well, it's not going my way. I don't know. The joy gets a little lean.
Well, here is Pastor Jack Hibbs, and he breaks down what it is to have the joy of the Lord.
John 15:11. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may abide in you. Ooh. And that your joy may be full. Well, obviously, if Jesus' joy is in us, it will be full. Joy, you know, joy, that doesn't mean you're bouncing off the walls and you're a hyper, overly caffeinated person. Oh, look at the joy of the Lord and that person, the joy of the Lord. That's not what it means. Listen, joy is having a great, deep, abiding peace of God's presence in the midst of an impossible situation. Joy is not happiness. You are not happy when a loved one dies. You're not happy when you lose your job. You're not happy when you're injured or insulted. Of course not, because happy means happenstance. Joy, on the other hand, never changes. Joy is always there. It's always constant. In all of those things, from being insulted to the death of a loved one, you've got joy. Are you weeping? Are you crying? Are you mourning? Yes, but down deep inside, when you get down to the surface, go through the surface, down through the layers, down to the foundation, there's joy. That's the Christian life. That's one of the indicators of the presence of God. That's how we can love people in difficult times, because we know this.
Mm-hmm. There you go. The joy of the Lord. Is it your strength? All right, let's take a look at some of the top stories. And we have a lot going on here today. And the top story is a very sad story. And late last night, 2 staff members at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. were shot and killed by a gentleman running around yelling, free the Palestinians. And this is just a horrific event. It was they were killed last night while leaving the event at the Jewish Museum. Apparently this couple, he was going to ask for her hand next week. And this gentleman apparently was pacing around outside the museum and then charged in and opened up fire, yelling, free the Palestinians, free the Palestinians. And yet he was arrested by the police there inside the event itself. They were leaving the event there at the Capitol Jewish Museum when the suspect approached a group of 4 people and opened fire. Now, I don't know what this is going to do, folks, but this is serious stuff. And to your point, Jerry, this gentleman does not have an Eastern name. His last name is Rodriguez.
Right.
And you kind of go, okay, is he a radicalized student?
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
What's going on here?
Right.
So anyway, he is from Chicago. We know that much. But this is still unwinding as we speak. The other top story just moments ago, the big beautiful bill, that's the nickname it's been given, did pass the House and goes to the Senate by 1 vote, 214 to 215. Yesterday, I watched this event, and I just almost fell off my chair watching this event. I thought, oh, my stars, this is unbelievable. But President Trump hosted yesterday, the South African president. All of this began very cordially. Everything was going good. And so the president started talking about genocide in his country. And things started to fall apart. Well, the president of South Africa was protesting against the claims of genocide, and then President Trump said, turn down the lights. Now, he was prepared.
He was ready for this, yep.
He turned down the lights and showed a video of a radical leader and other black political figures addressing a rally, chanting slogans, kill the farmer, shoot to kill.
Right.
Here's the president on what he said yesterday.
What you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
and
take
then when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No. There is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now been utilized.
The farmers are not black. I don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black.
I watched this, and I think the whole world stopped yesterday. And I think the president of South Africa walked out with his hat in his hand.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, this was really stunning stuff. And you know what? Like it or not, Trump was right on this. President Trump was right on this. And the genocide, now, we have a gentleman in an organization that we work with down in Pretoria, South Africa. We work with Radio Pulpit down there. And we had a gentleman there who represents the Word for You Today. And that country is so poorly run that they have blackouts like every 20 minutes.
Oh.
I mean, you can't. You have to really figure out how you're going to keep your refrigerator going. The country is in complete unwinding condition, and this genocide is going on, and they practice lacing down there.
Practice what?
Yeah. So if they don't like you and they're in the neighborhood, they tie you up, put a tie around you, and set it on fire.
Wow.
I mean, this is brutal stuff going on.
Yeah.
And President Trump called them on it and then showed that video. I'm going, oh, my stars. I never seen anything like it.
It was obviously very deliberate. He could have done this in closed quarters, just between him and the president, their advisors, but he wouldn't get the traction publicly with it if he didn't show the videos.
Now, think about this. He's had other heads of state in the Oval Office, and he has got the press in, and he's holding these big conversations in public. Not in a room.
Right.
What does that tell you? I mean, it's something we haven't seen before. This is the kind of stuff that goes on behind closed doors.
Right. This is transparency at a level we've never seen.
Well, look, I kind of felt sorry for the South African president until I heard him respond.
Right.
And I thought, well, you got to be kidding me. That's your answer?
Right, and that's why he did it publicly, the president.
Gosh, it was
horrible.
It was
something.
It really was. Yeah. I mean, it was a bad day. I don't know if that South Africa, is he still in town? He might be heading back.
I wouldn't think so,
Now, on top of everything else, yesterday was a rough day on Capitol Hill with hearings. Secretary of Education, Kash Patel from the FBI, RFK Jr., and Marco Rubio were all on the stand yesterday being drilled by Democrats. Now, let me just, before I run this tape, we don't use tape anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It dates me.
Yeah.
But before I run this video, what the Democrats are doing in these committees, the Republicans have done it too. When there's a Democrat sitting in the hot seat, the Republicans drill them. Now there's a Republican sitting in the hot seat, the Democrats are drilling them. The problem is the difference in the content of the exchange back and forth. And the Democrats are looking for anything that they can tear apart in the Trump administration. Anything. They're looking for anything that sparks.
That's all they have right now.
Okay, so I'm watching the exchange of them going after RFK Jr., and I'm going, you guys are talking to the wrong guy here. In fact, you're almost talking to one of your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he held his own, even though he has this, disability with his speech.
Yeah.
He held his own. Secretary of Education, she held her own. Kash Patel. But this exchange between Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Representative Brad Sherman from California just gives you a little bit of flavor of what's going down on yesterday.
Can you assure us that you will not enter into a nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia that does not have that same gold standard of security to make sure they're not building a nuclear weapon?
Well, first I will tell you that there has been no conversation about entering into one. For example, during the recent trip.
Can you, I've got limited time.
I can't. So here's the thing. I can
Sir,
tell you.
Either give me a yes, give me a no.
Well, I'm going to give you my answer if you want my answer.
I want a yes or a no.
Show.
Reclaiming my time.
Well, reclaim your time, but it's not a game show. I get to answer. These are complex questions. Let me answer.
Mr. Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time. The filibustering takes place in the Senate, not here.
I'm not filibustering. I'm trying to answer your question.
You're trying. Let's go on to the next question. With regard to Iran, can you assure us that you will continue sanctions on Iran until they verifiably agree to abandon all enrichment? That's a yes or no question.
No, it's not.
Well, can you give me a yes or no, or should I go on to the next question?
We believe that Iran should not be allowed to enrich uranium. Correct.
You believe that it should?
We believe that an acceptable deal with Iran is one in which they cannot enrich, because if they can enrich, they can weaponize.
I know why we don't want. I asked you, will we agree? Will we continue the sanctions until they verifiably agree to get rid of?
Oh, you have no worry about us. The worry was the previous administration. This administration has been
refusal to give me an answer is loud and clear.
No, I'd like to
reclaiming my time.
Whoa.
So what's interesting about this is it's no longer a learning situation.
No.
It's become a contentious argument of, and the level of disrespect. The other gentleman on the panel, was really interesting, and he said, you know, Mr. Secretary, before I ask you my first question, I want you to know, personally, I regret voting for your confirmation.
Yeah, and you know what? Rubio had a great response to it. Yeah. That's an affirmation that I'm doing my job.
Yeah, I guess I'm doing my job.
Right.
I'm going, gosh, this is just really ugly stuff.
Yes, it is.
And anyway, this is your government at work. You know, have a nice day.
Yeah.
You know, I think what we should do is, right in the middle of that, blow a big whistle. You know, everybody will go like that.
Time out.
Now they have a bunch of people come in and I'll give them some vanilla pudding.
Yes.
And some wooden spoons and say, come on, you know, just take a chill here.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. We'll be right back.
Sing with me now. Fill up the heavens, let his glory reside.
In the heart of the Rogue Valley, RVTD connects us all, not just through miles traveled, but also through time. Today, RVTD moves with the pulse of the Rogue Valley. More than just a bus ride, it's a lifeline for workers, students, and families, ensuring access for all to jobs, schools, and essential services. Rogue Valley Transportation District, celebrating 50 years of moving our community forward.
Finding that next great series to binge watch is fun, but your neck, shoulders, and body don't count that as me time. Hi, I'm Tamara Miller, owner of Organic Element Spa, and I invite you to put down the remote, get off the couch, and schedule yourself some real me or we time with your favorite service, like one of our many massages, couples massages, or facials. Your health, safety, and comfort are always top priority with us at Organic Element Spa. We can't wait to see you. Book your appointment today.
A ministry moment on the Dove.
Now notice when Jesus called his disciples, he never hid from them the fact that to follow him meant suffering, persecution, and death. We have a great deal of what someone has called cheap grace. Easy to follow Christ. Easy to get in the church. In Jesus' day, he called them to suffering. He didn't call them to a playground. He called them to a battlefield. He called them to war, spiritual war. And he said, you're going to suffer, and you're going to be wounded, and you're going to die in my cause, because the world is going to reject me. This world that's dominated by evil and sin will reject me.
A ministry moment on the Dove.
Okay, how y'all doing out there? Happy Phil Robertson's 79th birthday the other day. That's why I'm...
Oh, really?
You know,
how's Phil doing?
Well, you know, poor guy, he's battling dementia.
Yeah.
And, but you remember, happy.
Oh, yes.
He had it on cups, he had it on his head.
Yes.
Anyway, some local backyard news, and that is the lawmakers couldn't find agreement to take away cell phones in schools.
Oh.
So House Bill 2251 would require the state's 197 school districts to bar students from using phones from bell to bell. Well, apparently that failed. Didn't go anywhere.
Well, they don't want those kids to have nomophobia.
Yeah. This is a tough one. I don't know if there's a simple answer to this one.
Right. Yeah.
There was all kinds of, but you know, it was an idea that was properly approached. Improperly approached.
Oh, okay.
They didn't come. They just said, "Well, we need to take them away." Well, there could have been other things. They could have said, "Well, what can you put it in a box when you go into the classroom?"
Yeah.
And
right.
then pick it up when you're out of the classroom. So that would be, you know, one way to look at it. But they just want to do a total ban. Well, that, you know, you got parents, you got safety, and you know, with some of the bad things happening in schools, cell phones were really quite remarkable use and exiting buildings and things like that, and calling parents and all that.
Yeah, no, there are some definite advantages to kids having phones, and obviously we know there are serious disadvantages to them having them in the classroom. So what do you do?
It's a distraction.
Yeah.
Can they cheat? You know, especially with Chat GDT or GT. I mean,
well, that's a good point.
You know, hey, what's the answer to?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think what you have here is anyway, the bill went down. We have to give it some time and place to go through. The other thing that was a complaint was were kids, literally kids, students, I should say, were they filming teachers?
Well, you know what? And that's, for me, that's a reason to let them have the phones because, you know, I haven't seen another video that is different from this narrative, and that is that it's usually a liberal, progressive, way left teacher who's trying to indoctrinate the kids, and somebody's like saying, wait a minute, enough of this. I'm going to get proof of what's going on here. And I've been appalled, and I think a lot of people, at what we see going on in some classrooms with some teachers. And the only reason we know is some kid pulled out a phone and videotaped
So
it.
was that part of the motive behind the proposal of the bill?
That is a
from the Department of Education.
That's a huge question.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, the bill for now is dead. All right, and then the other this is kind of an interesting exchange, but Vice President Vance said that the U.S. Chief Justice John Roberts was wrong when he said the judicial branch should check the excess of the executive branch. Now, wait a minute. So John Roberts said the judiciary's role is to, quote, decide cases, but in the course of that, check the excesses of Congress or that of the executive branch, and that does require a degree of independence. Now, wait a minute. Okay. Vice President Vance says, no, Mr. Chief Justice, your job is to interpret the case.
Yeah.
Your job is not to look into the other branches of government.
Yeah.
This is called separation of powers. So he called him out on it, and I'm going, well, so the lines have been blurred.
Yeah, and
the lines have been blurred. I told Jerry just a few moments ago, it may take 3.5 years for us to really realize how deep the deep state is and how every level of our government was infiltrated with nonsense and the blurring of the lines and what I call the case of precedence, which to me is an alarming thing. But anyway, he called him out on it, and I think he's right because from what I understand, I'm no pro here, your job is to interpret cases. Is the case before you constitutional? Simple as that. That's what you're there for.
Yeah.
You're the final arbiter on cases as being constitutional.
Yeah, and is the power of the judiciary steadily increasing? Because we see, especially I think a lot of us are confused at district judges that seem to have more power than the President of the United States.
I think that's going to get changed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in the making. All right, quick look at the satellite image. This is Jerry on steroids.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's not. Those are clouds out there.
Okay.
So we have some clouds over the top of us, but the makings of a nice weekend ahead.
Yeah, not bad. Looking like low 80s on Saturday and upper 70s on Sunday.
All right, beautiful.
Not bad at all. Going into our Memorial Day weekend. Well, moving on Newsmax's national report, former New York State Representative Joe Borelli reacted to a Newsmax story that Mexico City's mayor's top aides were gunned down by cartel-linked assassins.
The mayor of Mexico City, Clara Brugada, you have to remember, she's the second most powerful elected position in Mexico. And both not only her personal assistant, but her personal advisor, Jose Munoz, they were gunned down. This all occurred on video, by the way, by gunmen who were on a motorcycle and fled the scene after executing both of them. Now, in addition to that, you had on live television President Sheinbaum, who leads the Morena Party, and her basically equivalent of our DHS secretary, Mr. Harfuch, on live national television as they were being notified. So this is going viral across Mexico right now because it sent a clear message that you are not untouchable. Here's why it's important, guys. As President Trump has designated these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and as I am showing you day in, day out, how the Sheinbaum administration and the Morena Party are going after these cartels and directly attacking, at least in phase one, their infrastructure, you now see this blowback coming. Now, who's responsible? they don't yet know.
Is there any more clear or evidence that we don't want the problems that have befallen Mexico over the last 20, 30, 40 years coming here into the United States of America? Look, we've had assassination attempts on President Trump. We've had the congressional baseball shooting. These things are done, thankfully, if you could say that, by lone gunmen, hopefully, by people who aren't institutionally backed, right? These cartels are institutional criminal syndicates with tentacles very deep in Mexican politics. And now that they feel that they can just execute the highest democratically elected government leaders and their staff is really appalling to every idea we have about the democratic freedoms that we enjoy in the United States. We need President Trump and President Sheinbaum to actually cooperate on eradicating this threat from the cartels. There may not be any more of a significant threat to Americans, not just along the southern border, but in cities all over America plagued by fentanyl, if these actions continue to happen. They want the message to be sent that they are in charge in Mexico, and President Sheinbaum needs to be more clear that she is the one in charge, and if necessary, work with President Trump, who, you know, pretty much can bring in a lot of heavy guns and a lot of muscle in this battle.
Do you think that'll happen?
Well, look, the answer is it should happen, because if she really loves her country and wants to save it, because the cartels, from what we understand now, is involved. He said it there, is involved at all levels of the Mexican government.
Right.
All levels of the Mexican government, and she can't trust the guy down the hall.
Exactly.
So Mexico's government needs to be purged, and the only thing I can say is that the cartels are not just dealing with drugs.
No.
I mean, they have organizations. They control a lot of the agriculture on the West Coast.
Yes.
And the only thing I can say is that if I don't know anything about her. My advice to her would be make friends with President Trump and get the assistance you need, because if not, your office is targeted.
Let me ask you something. You like avocados?
It's part of our family's economy.
Love it, man. Well, okay. Well, I watched one of those food programs that was about avocados coming out of Mexico. And I didn't realize that what I was going to learn was how heavily involved the cartels are in the avocado industry.
They control
shocking.
They control the avocado industry in California.
It's stunning.
My brother is an avocado farmer in Hawaii. He cannot import his avocado. He can send them anywhere in the world, but he can't put them in California.
No kidding.
Because of the Mexican cartel controls it.
That's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to
be a Mexican cartel?
No, I want to be an avocado rancher in Hawaii.
Well, I mean, that sounds glorious and all that, but it's agriculture, okay?
Oh, well, yeah.
And it's business. And the point being is, you know, if you're a farmer, you want your product, and your product's time sensitive. Right. It has to get to market.
Well, we saw the president offer the Mexican president that he would send down guns, and they turned it down already. Do you think that will change?
It should.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we understand that culture. I mean, there's two sides to the Mexican culture. There's the cartel side, and then there's this marvelous, family-oriented, dedicated Catholic side.
Yeah.
And hardworking.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And somehow the bad eclipsed the good. But that president's going to have to take can't even take a long walk on the beach. You know, she really needs to think about, she's in her corner. What she's going to do, I don't know.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll take an avocado break. We'll be right back.
Keep on singing, preach it to my soul. Love is the gift that God keeps giving. He is in control. When all is lost, it seems.
At Sweet Tea Express, we've got you covered. Order at the counter and our friendly service staff will do the rest. Burgers, salads, sandwiches, barbecue platters, sides, and more. Smoked, grilled, and served to perfection. Sweet Tea Express. Breakfast, burgers, and barbecue.
Hi, I'm the SOS Alarm guy, here to tell you about a great deal. SOS Alarm will not only beat any internet deal, but will install the system too. So burglars, beware. SOS Alarm for security and beyond.
Since 1987, Four Seasons Nursery has been the gold standard in the green industry here in Southern Oregon. Tim Elbert and his friendly staff continue to offer the best plants and most accurate knowledge to create your dream landscape. At Four Seasons Nursery on Crater Lake Avenue, you can let your imagination run wild with a huge selection of all things plant and gardening for both inside and outside beautification. Whether it's a flower for your window seal, one of our beautifully renowned signature hanging baskets, or a complete landscape design for your entire property, Four Seasons Nursery can help you every step of the way with design services, workshops, and more. Let your imagination run wild as you immerse yourself in their nursery filled with beauty that knows no bounds. Four Seasons Nursery, 5736 Crater Lake Avenue, 5736 Crater Lake Avenue, 1/2 mile north of Vilas Road, 541-779-5603, 541-779-5603.
All right, welcome back. 23 minutes before the hour. The big story is a sad story, and it's the lead story with CBN News this morning on what happened in Washington, D.C. last night. So let's check in with CBN News Watch.
This is CBN News Watch.
It is Thursday, May 22nd. We're going to begin this half hour with a tragedy for Israel and the Jewish community taking place right here in the United States as a young Jewish couple, staff members of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., were shot and killed Wednesday night while leaving an event at the Jewish Museum. The suspect in the shooting said, "I did this for Gaza." And when he was taken into custody, he shouted, "Free, free Palestine." CBN's George Thomas is on the story.
A visibly shaken witness recounted the moment he saw the shooter murder the young couple at close range.
I was walking by and a guy came up and looked like a gun. I couldn't tell what it was, but I heard it afterwards, the shots, and he shot this young couple.
The victims, Yaron Leshinsky and Sarah Milgram, were planning to get engaged.
The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. They were a beautiful couple who came to enjoy an evening in Washington's Cultural Center.
The two had just left an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum when the suspect approached them.
Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents.
And he ran inside and yelled something. I couldn't make it out what he said. He just ran up. It was terrible. I don't know what.
Where he was arrested by security.
The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody.
One witness says she gave the suspect water just before his arrest, unaware of the crime he had just committed.
We offered him water and he was like, "Yeah, that'll be great, actually." That's when he reaches into his backpack and pulls out a keffiyeh and says, "I did it. I did this for Gaza."
The Times of Israel says the suspect was reportedly a member of a radical left-wing group that advocated on behalf of Palestinians. President Trump condemned the attack on social media, saying these horrible DC killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end now. Hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA. Condolences to the families of the victims.
I spoke to the President of the United States multiple times tonight on behalf of the President. His prayers are with all of us, all of the Jewish community, everyone in Washington, D.C.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement saying, "We are witness to the terrible cost of anti-Semitism and wild incitement against the state of Israel. Blood libels against Israel have a cost in blood and must be fought to the utmost." George Thomas, CBN News.
And our CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, we heard what Prime Minister Netanyahu said about the tragic shooting. What has been some of the reaction there in Israel?
Well, Ephraim, some of the reaction is personal, actually, personal for the CBN News Bureau. We were here having our prayer meeting this morning, and we had a guest. His name was Albert Wexler, and he's the head of the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast, and we meant to do an interview with him. And as we were discussing the tragedy last night and the assassination, he discovered that he knew the father, and also one of our bureau members knows the father as well, and actually the grandmother. I believe the brother works for another companion, good friends of ours, the All Israel News with Joel Rosenberg, and one of their staff members is the brother of who was killed. So it's a very personal thing over here in Israel, and for all of the people here in Israel, and as well as all the people affected there in the United States, it's a solemn day, a tragic day, and a time when people maybe are realizing how dangerous this movement can be, and how people need to be praying for protection for people there in all of the embassies around around Israeli embassies around the world, and for the peace of Jerusalem.
Is there growing concern in Israel about growing left-wing violence against Jewish people?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is one indication that this can be a violent movement. We've seen violence on U.S. campuses with the Free Palestine movement, and so I think there's certainly definitely a sense of danger, and a sense that there will be increased security around embassies and around personnel. The Israeli embassies and the government typically and regularly send out dangers warnings to people traveling in different parts of the world based on intelligence that they receive. So I'm sure this is going to increase the security around the Israeli embassies in the D.C. and around the world for staff members.
Well, this is so sad. Mm-hmm. I don't. It's horrible.
Yeah, well, and we see a lot of the anti-Semitism on college campuses, and obviously in the crosshairs is Harvard, perhaps Columbia, and some of the other Ivy League schools. Will this affect the policies and the oversight that's going on in some of these universities? Because I think a lot of people in this country and a lot of legislators believe that the universities are allowing this to go way too far. And I think a lot of people think it was only a matter of time before an incident like this occurred.
It appears.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. The struggle with Ivy League schools and universities, Harvard, Columbia, and others, is a whole other can of worms. But the radicalization that somehow in America we can kill people because we don't like them.
Right.
And it ends up being racism on steroids. And I find it interesting that the left tolerates everything but a Jew. Everybody but a Jew. And you got to ask yourself, what's going on here? Well, it's biblical, obviously. But the fact that this happened to such a beautiful, innocent couple, this is not good.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Israel's going to do to respond to this, and I don't know what the United States is going to do to respond to this, but this is about as bad as it gets. All right. Let's take a quick look at the weather. We'll be right back.
A weak front is moving over the top of our region, bringing showers before a drying trend into the weekend. So today in northern Oregon and southern Washington, a chance of showers, then clearing to partly sunny with highs in the mid-60s for Vancouver, Portland, Wilsonville, and McMinnville. Continuing down the Willamette Valley with a slight chance of showers, then partly sunny with daytime high temperatures in the mid-60s for Salem, Albany, Corvallis, and Eugene with a light southwest wind. A slight chance of showers across central Oregon, then clearing to partly sunny in low 60s for Prineville and Bend and near 59 in Sun River. Over in Boise, Idaho, mostly cloudy, then a slight chance of thunderstorms in mid-70s. Along the Oregon coast, decreasing clouds becoming sunny with daytime high temperatures in the low 60s for Coos Bay and mid-to-upper 50s for Port Orford, Brookings, and Crescent City, California. In southern Oregon, sunny for the Rogue Valley with daytime highs in the low 70s for Grants Pass and Medford and near 68 in Ashland. In the Klamath Basin, sunny with highs in the upper 60s and lows in the low 40s. Into Northern California, sunny with a high in the low 70s in Wairika. More sunshine as we move down with daytime high temperatures in the mid-80s for Redding, Chico, and Sacramento with a light southwest wind. In the Bay Area, sunny skies with daytime highs near 77 for Santa Rosa and Napa. Sunny in San Francisco with a high near 66 and a west wind gusting up to 21 miles per hour. And today in San Jose, sunny and near 77. It's a look at your Thursday weather on the Dove.
Beautiful shot of Southern Oregon. There it is, our backyard.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous.
It's going to be a beautiful day. Hey, do you remember the good old days when late night TV was entertaining?
Oh.
It was funny. And you didn't really know what political party the host was a part of?
Yeah.
Well, that all ended.
Yeah, well, did they ever?
It all ended with the airing of the last Tonight Show, hosted by Johnny Carson. On May 22nd, 1992, the curtains closed on an era. Johnny Carson, the king of late night, walked out to his desk one last time on The Tonight Show, his voice calm, his wit sharp, his presence steady as ever. For nearly 30 years, Americans had ended their day with Johnny's sly smile, his effortless charm, and a kind of comedy that brought people together. That final night, 50 million viewers tuned in, friends, families, even rivals, sharing a moment that felt more like a goodbye to a friend than just a host. There were no political jabs, no outrage, only laughter, gratitude, and a quiet dignity. As Johnny softly said, "I bid you a very heartfelt good night," the screen faded, and so did a time when late-night TV offered a gentle, unifying close to the American day.
Well, I have to tell you, it really was the end of an era. I often come across some of those old interviews, and you just roll on the floor with them.
It is just hilarious. Yeah, it's like days. You said it. You miss those days because everything changed.
Yeah,
it all changed.
Okay, well, maybe we ought to just bring it back.
Yeah, we'll just go into reruns. I mean, he was on the air for, almost 30 years?
Yeah.
I remember we grew up with Johnny Carson. I remember watching him. I remember my mom coming out in the living room, at dark 30, I was supposed to be in bed, and I've been watching Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
She goes, "What do you think you're doing here?"
Well, you got to remember, Johnny Carson was after the 11 o'clock news.
Yeah.
So you watched the 11 o'clock news, Johnny Carson, then you went to bed.
That's right.
Okay, we'll be right back.
I'm holding the many prayer requests that arrive here at the Dove. We're grateful that you include us with your prayer needs. As a staff, know that we join you and pray over your requests for God's help. Have a prayer need? Let us know by going to thedove.us.
Looking for the perfect RV adventure?
Team Toner's got you covered from homes to homes on wheels.
Discover unbeatable deals only at American RV in Southern Oregon.
Disasters happen, and Oregon faces a range of disaster threats, including earthquakes, floods, and storms. You can prepare now by taking 3 important steps. Create a home inventory, make copies of important financial records, and contact your insurance company to make sure you have the right amounts and types of home insurance coverage. Be disaster ready by being insurance ready. Visit dfr.oregon.gov/prepare now to learn how.
Life is complicated enough. Why worry about what to do with your extra car? Skip the costs of maintaining it, storing it, insuring it, or renewing registration. Car repairs? Forget about it. Here's one easy solution to your car problem. Donate it to our station. It's fast, free, tax deductible, and if you donate, you're going to feel incredible knowing you're supporting quality programming. Interested? Just call this toll-free number or donate online. Thank you.
Romans 1:20 tells us God's power is revealed in creation. Yet 2 Corinthians 4:4 reminds us that Satan has blinded many to the gospel. At the Life Outdoors, we've seen the truth of God, His eternal power and divine nature displayed in every mountain and stream. Follow along and let's wake the wild within. The mountains don't lie. Where there's truth, there's Jesus.
Okay, welcome Welcome back. 9 minutes before the hour. Teaching teachers to help students to understand their faith. That's kind of interesting. It's a topic with Summit Ministries, and Dr. Jeff Meyer, who we've had on the program quite often, is dealing with a couple of professionals on just how to do that. And here's a little bit of their exchange.
They will be embracing a non-biblical worldview.
Absolutely.
And if they're not embracing a non-biblical worldview and they're not talking with you about it, that's a serious problem.
Absolutely.
If they are talking with you about it, it might be because they've even been coached on how to school your parents and make them feel inferior, inadequate, or ashamed for the beliefs that they hold to be true. So everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm sure I can relate to that. I've had that actual conversation on some topic of the day, DEI or transgender or whatever it is. But when you say you work with schools, talk a little bit more about what that is.
Yeah, you know, like Roger said, there's been tremendous hunger, tremendous need for a voice in the Christian schools to talk about how to impact this next generation in a way that would result in just flourishing in their personal lives and just the ministry to be extended. And so what we have the opportunity to do is to go in and talk with teachers, to train teachers about, to talk to them about the entire approach to shaping a child's worldview. We often, even in Christian schools, just like in parenting, think about that magic truth claim, that magic statement or verse from the Bible that we can use to say, oh, you're thinking this way, let me just kind of bop you on the head with this truth claim and you're going to get it. And there's so much more than that, because we know that a worldview is not just our thoughts, but it's our desires, the things that we hold in our heart, and our ways of being, how we live our life, the rhythms and the patterns and the things that we do. And so that is kind of new thinking for teachers who traditionally have been in the business of delivering knowledge. So we go in and we talk to them about all the ways that we can influence a child's worldview, to open that up, to help them not only just be aware that they have a worldview, but to own the fact that they have a worldview, and to do some deep thinking about it. Because deep thinking isn't really a prized process anymore in society. So we're taking this idea of Christian education as like, hey, you go to a Christian school and you go to chapel and you go to Bible, and we're saying, no. You can take everything you do throughout your day, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the athletic field, whether it's in the choir room, the band room, the art room, wherever it is, and we can make it about biblical worldview formation.
All right. Well, we love hero stories. We love stories that the hero, performs a rescue, especially a Samaritan. But this Good Samaritan hero, so far, chooses to remain anonymous. A family is on a mission to find a stranger who saved 87-year-old Sabato Borelli's life after he went into cardiac arrest during a daily walk. On May 15th around 3 p.m., Borelli collapsed near Jarry Park in Montreal while out for his usual walk. A passerby jumped into action, calling 911 and performing CPR on him for about 20 minutes until paramedics arrived. Thanks to the efforts of this Good Samaritan, Borelli is alive and recovering in the hospital where he recently celebrated his 87th birthday. His daughter, Gloria Borelli, is now trying to identify and thank the person who gave her more time with her father. This gentleman or woman or child, I don't know who saved my father, she said. All they wanted was this person to have a chance, and he was given that chance. According to the American Heart Association and other medical authorities, for every minute that passes without CPR and defibrillation after cardiac arrest, the chance of survival decreases by about 7 to 10%. That means quick action, especially performing CPR, can make a dramatic difference in whether someone lives or dies. And in spite of a continuing search to find the hero, no one has yet stepped forward to take credit for the life-saving act. Pretty amazing. Just the anonymous hero. You guys, you know CPR, don't you?
Well, we did the class here.
Yeah. I didn't do it.
Okay, well, you weren't around, so so if you fall down, we'll take care of you.
You don't fall down. If you fall down, make sure Scott or Dan or somebody's in the room, because I'm going to look at you and say, get up.
Oh, yeah.
Get up.
Okay. No, we need to do a refresher course on that.
All right.
I take with you 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. Praise be to God the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. That is the gospel in a nutshell, right there. All right, we'll take a quick vanilla pudding break. We'll be
If you enjoy the Dove, help spread the word. Tell someone who needs the love of Jesus about the Dove TV. If they can't receive a signal, the Dove streams worldwide on Roku and Apple TV, plus online at thedove.us. Spread the word.
Live the adventure with Hellgate Jetboat Excursions. Discover your wild side in the heart of the Pacific Northwest with Hellgate's high-speed spins, stunning rogue river scenery, and incredible wildlife sightings. It's an experience like no other. Plus, you can enjoy brunch or dinner on the open-air deck of the exclusive Hellgate River Lodge, a place where families connect, friends unite, and the river brings it all to life. Visit Hellgate.com to book your adventure. Hellgate Jetboat Excursions, where adventure runs wild.
Co-op, where big ideas grow.
Stewardship begins with the knowledge that nothing belongs to us, but everything belongs to the Lord. This helps us to run a business not in the fear of lack, but in the assurance of His care and provision. Such a perspective eliminates the drive to sell and replaces it with a heart that says serve. This begins with serving our clients and coworkers with integrity and genuine care. That's why at Kelly's, it's automotive service with a heart for God and treating others as we ourselves would want to be treated. Our promise is to never sell our clients anything we don't believe they need. Another is to do all we can to meet other needs, such as shuttle service and loaner cars, or taking the time to really listen, even at times praying with our customers. Sometimes this means sacrifice, going above and beyond, but that's why I work for Kelly's Automotive Service. Honoring God while serving people with honesty and integrity.
Tackling the tough issues facing America and our nation's freedom. That's Sekelo on the Dove TV.
DAs around the country finding who they want to prosecute.
A bold half hour hosted by ACLJ's Jordan and Logan Sekelo, taking you inside the battle of constitutional and political freedom, discussing issues that matter to you and your family.
No one that should or want to run for president will end up running for president.
Be in the know with Sekelo on the Dove TV.
The Dove TV, encouraging and informative with Focus Today, weekdays. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mornings on the Dove, right here. This is where it happens because Jerry's here to make it happen. And I'm here as the referee.
You know, that could be a terrible disappointment if that was the actual case.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
All right, good morning to you. A lot going on in the news. We have a lot to talk about, things happening even as we speak. Just a few moments ago, the big, beautiful bill got through the House by one vote, 215 to 214. It's on its way to the Senate. We'll have more on that coming up in a moment. The weather is, well, you had some sprinkles, but it's going to be very nice as we head up through the Memorial Day weekend.
Absolutely.
Gorgeous. Yeah. Absolutely perfect weather. So thank you, Lord, for that. Anything special?
Well, it is National Maritime Day, recognizing the launch of the maritime industry in the United States. This celebration also honors America's merchant marines for their contributions and sacrifices for our country. And I've known one person in my life who was part of the Merchant Marines, and the tales that he told me, I was a young man and he was an elderly man at that time, and it was just fascinating. It made me have great interest in doing it, but not enough to go get on a ship and start doing it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm fascinated with yachts.
With yachts?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like watching yacht videos once in a while when I'm really bored.
Okay. Yeah.
All sizes,
Mm-hmm.
boats are a hole in the water you put money in.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So I don't, that's not on my list of bucket list.
Yeah.
But I like looking at them.
Well, one of my fascinations too is, I love to listen to, true survival stories. Some of the survival stories from people who, sank out in the middle of the ocean is stunning and amazing. And it'll make you think twice about getting on one of them, because, man, when you're out in the middle of nowhere, it's tough.
Well, boats and airplanes have something in common.
And that is?
They both go down.
Ooh. Okay, moving on. It is also National Buy a Musical Instrument Day, and all the musicians said amen.
Well, it's an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I interview Dr. George Barna quite often from his home, and behind him he has on the wall there all of his bass guitars,
I love it.
And he can't have one, you got to have two, So I don't know, I was going to call Doug Gould and see if this is a category within the rock recovery where you could go and maybe get counseling or pills and get over it.
Well, we know that guitar players love instruments. They have more than one guitar. You can never have too many guitars. And is there a hierarchy in bands? Are some more desirable than the others? I saw a phrase the other day. It said, "What do you call a girl on the arm of a trombone player?"
Oh, whoa.
A tattoo.
Oh, God.
Okay, moving on.
You better.
It is National Vanilla Pudding Day, using it as an excuse to enjoy a delicious dish of cold, creamy vanilla pudding. Now, puddings that we enjoy as desserts today aren't really what was commonly known as pudding in ancient dinner table times. Most medieval puddings were meat-based and seasoned with herbs and spices. Even sweetened cooks usually served them hot. Toward the end of the 18th century, people more than likely made puddings from grains or day-old bread with nuts, fruit, or meats. They used these puddings to stretch meals for a large family. But obviously, I'm glad it evolved into something sweet that we have after dinner, and there ain't nothing wrong with vanilla pudding.
No.
It's good.
You get it in these little packs of 4,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I'm sure it's healthy.
Okay.
Anyway, all right. Now, we know that phobias are things, a phobia is something that people fear. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of different phobias, but none with a cooler name than this one. This is nomophobia. Nomophobia.
Nomophobia.
And it is the fear of not having your mobile phone.
Oh boy.
People are increasingly reliant on their devices, but for some, the attachment can develop into a serious issue. We know that. Those with nomophobia, an abbreviation for no mobile phone phobia, have a fear of not having their phone on them. They get equally freaked out when their battery dies or when there's no network coverage available. One study by UK firm YouGov found that 34% of men and 52% of women currently deal with some form of the condition. This is striking close to home.
All you got to do is forget your phone or lose it.
Right. And, and I mentioned, too, you have that decision. I've gotten in my car. I've driven away from here. I've been halfway home, which is, over 30-some miles home. Mm-hmm. And I realized I don't have my phone. What am I going to do?
You come back.
I come back. Yeah, come back. I can't leave it over there.
There you go.
But some are afflicted with it to a higher degree than others. And it's interesting, too, because we didn't grow up with mobile phones. No. We didn't have smartphones. But how much more elevated is nomophobia for folks who grew up with them. They don't know anything else.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Several generations now.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
How about No Mo Jerry?
No Mo.
Right here.
A weak front is moving over the top of our region, bringing showers before a drying trend into the weekend. So today in northern Oregon and southern Washington, a chance of showers, then clearing to partly sunny with highs in the mid-60s for Vancouver, Portland, Wilsonville, and McMinnville. Continuing down the Willamette Valley with a slight chance of showers, then partly sunny with daytime high temperatures in the mid-60s for Salem, Albany, Corvallis, and Eugene with a light southwest wind. A slight chance of showers across central Oregon, then clearing to partly sunny in low 60s for Prineville and Bend and near 59 in Sun River. Over in Boise, Idaho, mostly cloudy, then a slight chance of thunderstorms in mid-70s. Along the Oregon coast, decreasing clouds becoming sunny with daytime high temperatures in the low 60s for Coos Bay and mid-upper 50s for Port Orford, Brookings, and Crescent City, California. In southern Oregon, sunny for the Rogue Valley with daytime highs in the low 70s for Grants Pass and Medford and near 68 in Ashland. In the Klamath Basin, sunny with highs in the upper 60s and lows in the low 40s. Into northern California, sunny with a high in the low 70s in Wairika. More sunshine as we move down with daytime high temperatures in the mid-80s for Redding, Chico, and Sacramento with a light southwest wind. In the Bay Area, sunny skies with daytime highs near 77 for Santa Rosa and Napa. Sunny in San Francisco with a high near 66 and a west wind gusting up to 21 miles per hour. And today in San Jose, sunny and near 77. It's a look at your Thursday weather on the Dove.
Okay, and there is a beautiful picture of our valley this morning. That's the north end, and a few clouds out there this morning, slowly giving way to more sunshine. Mm-hmm. Absolutely gorgeous.
And as you start your day, here is some great encouragement with Pastor Jack Hibbs.
Verse 1 and verse 8 says, "Remind them to be subject to rulers and authorities, to obey and to be ready for every good work." That's an act of affection coming from God. Verse 8, Titus 3:8, "This is a faithful saying, and these things I want you to affirm constantly, that those who have believed in God should be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable to men." We're talking about you and I being instruments of God and being loving instruments to not only one another, but to the world around us. The Roman Empire, by the way, made mention about how loving the Christian church was in the 1st and 2nd century. Isn't that neat? What a witness. That's the greatest witness of all. We need to underscore that in our lifetime. Churches might think they're a success because they're big. That's not success. Churches might think that they're successful because they've got money. That's not success. Churches might think that they've got success because they're this or they're that or the other. No, you know what the criteria is? That church is successful if God says that church is loving. And when I say love, I mean God's love, not this wimpy, weak, worldly love we talk about in this day and age, which is so ill. I'm talking about the love of God, which you and I need to discover. And part of the discovery of knowing God's love in our own life is asking God to use you and I to love others.
Mm-hmm. Even the ones we don't love. And like.
And yeah.
Good stuff. All right, let's take a look at some of the top stories, a couple of them. First of all, as we mentioned earlier, the big, beautiful bill did pass through the House barely early this morning, 215 to 214. It's on its way to the Senate. And, of course, all the remarks and the criticism on both sides of the aisle are starting to fly. Mm-hmm. It probably will run into some bumpy roads in the Senate. Okay. There's a couple of rogue Republicans over there. So it's going to be tough, but we'll see. They do have the margins if they can hold a couple of the wayward ones down.
Let me ask you this. What would rogue Republicans have against this bill?
Well, that's the same thing that the rogue Republicans had in the House. Doesn't go too far, goes too far. Medicaid, it does increase the deficit because it raises the debt ceiling. All of these things, don't get me wrong, they're all legitimate concerns. But has somebody else come up with a different plan to address this?
No.
Because you know what the biggest thing about this bill is? What? If you don't pass this bill, then the tax cuts that President Trump put through in his first administration will go dead. That will increase $4 trillion on the deficit, and that'll throw us into inflation. So I don't know if that's part of the leveraging of this bill, but the point being is it's got a lot of other stuff in it. So we'll see where it goes. The other story, it's really, really sad. Late last night, 2 staff members of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. were shot and killed last evening while leaving the event at the Jewish Museum. And the suspect that did it yelled, "Free, free the Palestinians," or "Free Palestine," on his killing spree. He was immediately apprehended by the security system there. They were leaving the event Capitol Hill, the Jewish Museum, when the suspect apparently was walking around outside and then approached a group of 4 people and opened up fire. The couple that died is beautiful couple, and apparently he was going to ask for her hand next week. And so this is really bad. Now, the only thing we know about the suspect is his last name is Rodriguez. It's not an Eastern name. It's Rodriguez. And apparently he's been radicalized by a bunch of left-wing groups and did this. This is bad news. And CBN Newswatch will have a little bit further.
Well, let me ask you this: with the the attitude that's going on college campuses, and with administrations kind of basically allowing this, does this embolden people like these lone wolves to strike? What does it say something about the state of affairs that's going on here?
Well, I think what the hard part for us to understand, they're vigilantes, excuse me, for what they believe. As much as we propagate the Christian faith, because we believe it to be the truth, what they do, they believe to be the truth. And that's hard for us to wrap a rational brain around. I often say you can't make sense of nonsense. But this is evil. This is evil. And one of the mysteries that's always in the back of my mind, why is it that racism applies to everybody but the Jews? Somehow they have always been open target. Well, you got to read the Bible to get the answer. Okay, the other thing that happened yesterday, I watched this yesterday. I don't know, I happened to tune it on. I was busy. I flipped over and I hit the TV out my desk and I'm watching this and I'm going, oh my stars, I couldn't believe what I was watching. And President Trump had the president of South Africa in, and everything started off pretty cordial and civil. Everybody's in the room; it's packed full, and the media's there. I mean, he's using the media in these Oval Offices, state meetings, and things are going pretty good until the president basically said, "Well, why are you allowing genocide?" And the South African president said, "We don't allow it. It's not a government policy. You're allowing genocide." And then he says to his team, "Turn down the lights." So the lights in the Oval Office go down, and he runs a video. Oh my stars! I couldn't believe what I was watching. I go, "You just put this guy. You just nailed him right there in the Oval Office."
Absolutely.
So here's what the president had to say.
What you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
take land. And then when they take the land,
they
kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now been utilized.
The farmers are not black. I don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black.
Well, this went on for a little bit, and I'm looking at this, and there's no way the president of South Africa could escape the facts.
Oh, boy.
That genocide is happening there in South Africa. We have friends down there with Radio Pulpit, with Word for You Today down there, and some folks that we've known for quite some time. And that country is just falling apart. I mean, they have blackouts and brownouts, they call them, about every 20 minutes or 40 minutes. That means it's hard to keep your refrigerator cold.
Right.
They do have genocide going on. They are killing white farmers down there. And they still practice lacing down there, which if they don't like you, and you're caught stealing in a neighborhood, they tie you up, and they put a tie around you, and they set it on fire. So it's not, and to say that it's not government policy, it's not government policy for us to allow killing, but you guys aren't doing anything about it.
I was going to say, what are they doing about it?
Nothing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
That's the whole point.
So, silence is condonement.
Yeah.
So, all right. The other thing that happened yesterday, it was a pretty active day. Before the House Appropriations, Senator House Appropriations Committee, during the House hearing, we had Secretary of Education was being drilled, Kash Patel was being drilled from the FBI, RFK Jr. was really being drilled, and Marco Rubio from the State Department was being drilled. And this happens on both sides. The Democrats will drill the Republicans will drill the Democrats. But this is serious stuff, and you wonder, why don't they want the answer? Why don't they want an answer? So watch this exchange with Secretary Rubio.
Can you assure us that you will not enter into a nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia that does not have that same gold standard of security to make sure they're not building a nuclear weapon?
Well, first I will tell you that there has been no conversation about entering into one. For example, during the recent trip.
Can you? I've got limited time.
I can't. So here's the thing. I can
Sir,
tell you.
Either give me a yes, give me a no.
Well, I'm going to give you my answer if you want my answer.
I want a yes
this is
or
not
a
a game show.
no. Reclaiming my time.
Well, reclaim your time, but it's not a game show. I get to answer. These are complex questions. Let me answer.
Mr. Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time. The filibustering takes place in the Senate, not here.
I'm not filibustering. I'm trying to answer your question.
You're trying. Let's go on to the next question. With regard to Iran, can you assure us that you will continue sanctions on Iran until they verifiably agree to abandon all enrichment? That's a yes or no question.
No, it's not.
Well, can you give me a yes or no, or should I go on to the next question?
We believe that Iran should not be allowed to enrich uranium. Correct.
You believe that it should?
We believe that an acceptable deal with Iran is one in which they cannot enrich, because if they can enrich, they can weaponize.
I know why we don't want. I asked you, will we agree? Will we continue the sanctions until they verifiably agree to get rid of?
Oh, you have no worry about us. The worry was the previous administration. This administration has been
refusal to give me an answer is loud and clear.
No, I'd
like to reclaiming my time.
Well, look, we've seen this happen on both sides, but the fact of the matter is that this really is turning into a show where the Democrats are looking for anything to strike to create a little bit of a spark. It's really kind of sad because this is serious stuff.
Yeah.
It's very serious stuff. Why can't the answer be given?
Well, you know why? Because he's not giving the answer they want.
Well, I also watched what happened to RFK Jr., who used to be one of their own, and the guy is trying to clean up the health and the food supply and exchange here in America, and they wouldn't let the guy talk.
Right. But boy, he's not afraid to push back.
Boy, he pushed back.
Oh, man.
So anyway, that's going on. That's your government at work. Does that make you just want to jump up and run for office?
Oh. What's that old thing about? Oh, root canal.
Root canal. So, Dr. Borg, if you're listening, I'm still promoting root canals, even though you came to my mouth with a Makita drill. We'll be right back.
With grace you redeem me, yeah. You restore my soul. Now I'm made new.
Black Flag Armory offers top brand affordable rifles, shotguns, handguns, and gear. We also offer an array of classes emphasizing safety, self-defense, and accuracy. We strive to provide the absolute best possible experience when buying a firearm. Family friendly for every. Black Flag Armory in Midford and Grants Pass. Online at blackflagarms.com or 541-499-0779. 541-499-0779.
Come fall in love with Northridge Senior Living, where contemporary sunlit interiors meet old world elegance. Walk through our lovely hallways and enjoy the fun staff-led activities. Forge lasting friendships with other residents and our exceptional caregivers. Dine in style. Gather near the fireplace under breathtaking chandeliers. Our reasonably priced apartments are spacious with private balconies. Northridge is Christian-owned and operated, pet-friendly, and only 2 blocks from Asante Rogue Regional Medical Center. On-site 24/7 in-home care is available. We also offer senior adult daycare where your loved one can spend the day with us and the evenings with you. Northridge Senior Living, your home.
Okay, how y'all doing out there in Never Never Land? Good morning to you. Welcome to Mornings on the Dove. Happy Thursday, better known as Friday Eve. I would suspect that no commerce tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, because we're going into a 3-day weekend, right?
Yeah,
So let's stretch it.
Let's stretch it.
Yeah.
I think commerce will end by 8:30 tomorrow morning.
You know, there's some may be checking out today.
Well, you know, was that a warning?
No.
Well, just a couple of local things and a backup. One is on our own state legislature, which is in session right now. But apparently a bill to ban cell phones in Oregon is now dead in schools. They were trying to push some kind of deal where K through 12 phones would be banned. Well, it didn't seem to go anywhere. And there are 19 states that have these kinds of restrictions for students on having phones. And I don't know, I think there are various types of restrictions from you can't have it on campus or you have to put it in a box when you walk into the classroom. I mean, there's various things here.
Yeah.
But apparently this argument fell apart, and it had good, healthy arguments on both sides, but no go. Kind of interesting.
Well, yeah.
It's an emotional one. I can see both sides of the story. I don't know where
exactly.
I go with that.
And obviously, one side of that story is that it's distracting for students. Obviously, it may keep them from giving their attention to the subject at hand. Also, and you brought this up, it opens the possibility for a little bit of cheating. You can Google stuff and chat GPT stuff, and hey, I need an essay written, like now.
Yeah.
All right, and so write that. But on the other hand, on the good points, it allows parents to keep in touch with their kids.
Yeah.
It allows us to see some of the unsavory things that go on inside of some of these classrooms.
There you go.
With politically driven teachers who, if a student isn't conforming to their thought process and their narrative, they sometimes are ostracized for it in a very, very negative way. So how do you balance all this stuff out?
Well, it tells me that the bill wasn't properly thought through and it wasn't presented very well.
Okay.
So all the points you made probably weren't addressed.
Yeah.
They're probably part of the argument, It seems to me that there is a compromise here, and that is the student puts the phone in a box when they come into the classroom.
Maybe, yeah.
That seems to be reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, but that wasn't the case, and it went down. One other quick thing is Vice President Vance was did a podcast the other day, and he was called out Chief Justice John Roberts. And he said, the Vice President said Chief Justice John Roberts was wrong when he said that the judicial branch should, quote, check the excesses of the executive branch. What does that mean? In the meantime, the Chief Justice said that the judiciary's role is to decide cases. Yes, should have been a period there, comma. But in the course of that, check the excesses of Congress or that of the executive branch that does require a degree of independence. Now, wait a minute. Is he sticking his nose into the separation of powers?
Seems to be.
So this is kind of interesting. The lines are all blurred.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think what we're seeing now is how deep the crud is in Washington, and how things got blurred. And the reasons left's upset is because they're being exposed, you know. And some right people are caught up in this too, don't get me wrong. But the point being is that where's the separation of church? The role of the Supreme Court is to interpret the law according to the Constitution.
Right, right.
Pretty simple. So you got a case before them. How does it line up with the Constitution? Now, when they bleed over and say, well, we're here to take care of the excesses of Congress, and no, you're not superior to the executive.
Who's going to check their excesses?
See?
Yeah.
It's called checks and balances and separation of powers. So I don't know. Okay, so much for that. Let's take a look at Wall Street. Happy Thursday to you. Thank you, Preston. He has smart lawns, and he'll put one at your place, and you want to water it or irrigate it, and there goes your zero mower.
Yeah, man.
Okay, the Dow's up 22, the Nas jumped up 134, and the S&P's up 14. So a little green ink at the ring of the bell. That's good news. Got a little bit profit taking. Pushed gold down a few pennies, 32.92, not far. Gold's hanging in there. Silver's hanging in there at 33. And look at this, down $1 for crude oil, 64. That's not bad.
Time to fill up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here is a story that we need to talk about. It's on Fox News' The Story. Retired U.S. Air Force General Lieutenant General David Deptula discusses the reveal of President Trump's new F-47 fighter jet. Check it out.
We'll soon have the world's first and only sixth-generation fighter jet, the F-47. Why did they name it 47? Does anybody know? I don't know. We're also looking at an increased version of the F-35. I think we're going to call it the F-55, which will be a double-engine plane. I like two engines in a plane. I'm sorry if I say that.
Well, first, what I'd share with you is the president's decision to move forward with the F-47, or also known as the Next Generation Air Dominance Fighter, is likely to be the most important defense decision that he makes during his entire term. And I'll tell you why. Our entire way of waging war is involved with integrating the operations of all our service components. And that depends on control of the air, or what the military calls air superiority. And without that, we place our soldiers, sailor, airmen, Marines, and Guardians and their missions at risk. So no major military campaign can succeed without air superiority. Relative to your question on how the F-47 stacks up to the Chinese aircraft that have been unveiled recently, it's difficult to tell until they run up against one another. But I'm here to tell you, based on the designs, the technology, and the experience that the United States has, I can be pretty certain by telling you that the F-47 is the winner over what the Chinese have.
Interesting.
So how much it cost?
That's a great question. Any idea?
It's probably at least $1 billion a plane.
Ooh.
It's probably in that neighborhood. It's stealth.
Okay. Yeah.
It's got all that stuff going on. I'm just guessing because in today's manufacturing costs and everything else. The question is, can they deliver it faster than Boeing can on the Air Force One? By the way, the president, I shouldn't say the president, the government did accept the 747-800 from Saudi Arabia.
I heard that, yes.
It's going to the Defense and the State Department for evaluation as to whether or not it can be converted faster than waiting for the two coming from Boeing.
Oh, interesting.
So they have a lot to work.
Wow.
They have a lot of work to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, can they convert it? And quite frankly, it's coming from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Can you debug it?
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. Well,
I mean, they could have. I don't know. I'm not sure if I would trust it.
Yeah. Is it a Trojan horse?
I don't know. I mean, they could have listening devices anywhere in that airplane.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they'd have to completely strip it, rewire it, put it back together.
Right, and is there technology available to detect all of these things that could be a threat?
So before President Trump leaves office, by the way, because the thing of it is, by the time he does leave office, the new 747s from Boeing will be there. So this particular gift 747, if it's converted to Air Force One, would go to his library. Okay. But I think what the president has in mind is that he'd be flying around in this Saudi Arabia gold inside 747 flying palace with all the stuff that Air Force One has. And then on his wing, he'll have 2 of the new F-47s.
Right. Yes. Oh, what a shot that would be. And isn't it interesting how the left is all up in arms now about this gift that's being given to the country, not to the president, and they just ignore the other gifts that were going on in the last administration, which was a little different.
Well, you know, it's called politics, man.
Oh, man.
It gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I really lean towards this vanilla pudding thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to go get it?
Well, hold on. I'll run over there and grab something.
Yeah, you run.
You go scoop me up.
We'll be right back.
Every act of love, Jesus help us carry you. Alive in us, your light shines through. With every act of love, we bring the kingdom.
Your yard is where life happens, but it can be muddy and hard to maintain. Enjoy a maintenance-free artificial turf lawn all year round with Smart Lawn LLC. No mowing, no fertilizing, no watering. Our synthetic grass is beautiful and resilient. It's certified to be lead-free, and there's no need for pesticides. Safe for your children and pets. Smart Lawn LLC has all your artificial turf and putting green areas covered beautifully. 541-941-3538.
Go where the wild runs deep. At Hellgate Jet Boat Excursions, you feel the power of the mighty Rogue River as you take in the sights and sounds of nature, journey through Hellgate Canyon, and adventure through the breathtaking wilderness. Enjoy brunch or dinner on the open-air deck of the exclusive Hellgate River Lodge, and end your adventure with our exciting jet boat spins. It's a memory in the making with family and friends. Book your adventure at Hellgate.com. Hellgate Jet Boat Excursions, where adventure runs wild.
Since 1987, Four Seasons Nursery has been the gold standard in the green industry here in Southern Oregon. Tim Elbert and his friendly staff continue to offer the best plants and most accurate knowledge to create your dream landscape. At Four Seasons Nursery on Crater Lake Avenue, you can let your imagination run wild with a huge selection of all things plant and gardening for both inside and outside beautification. Whether it's a flower for your windowsill, one of our beautifully renowned signature hanging baskets, or a complete landscape design for your entire property, Four Seasons Nursery can help you every step of the way with design services, workshops, and more. Let your imagination run wild as you immerse yourself in their nursery filled with beauty that knows no bounds. Four Seasons Nursery, 5736 Crater Lake Avenue, 5736 Crater Lake Avenue, 1/2 mile north of Vilas Road, 541-779-5603, 541-779-5603.
Welcome back. 27 minutes before the hour. Well, last night's incident in Washington, D.C., where a gunman shot 2 Jewish people attending a party there at the Jewish Museum, a big rally there, a beautiful couple that were heading towards engagement. It's rocked the world within 3 or 4 hours of it happening. So let's check in with CBN Newswatch and get caught up from their side of the story.
This is CBN Newswatch.
It is Thursday, May 22nd. We're going to begin this half hour with a tragedy for Israel and the Jewish community taking place right here in the United States as a young Jewish couple, staff members of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., were shot and killed Wednesday night while leaving an event at the Jewish Museum. The suspect in the shooting said, "I did this for Gaza." And when he was taken into custody, he shouted, "Free, free Palestine." CBN's George Thomas is on the story.
A visibly shaken witness recounted the moment he saw the shooter murder the young couple at close range.
I was walking by and a guy came up and looked like a gun. I couldn't tell what it was, but I heard it afterwards, the shots, and he shot this young couple.
The victims, Yaron Leshinsky and Sarah Milgram, were planning to get engaged.
The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. They were a beautiful couple who came to enjoy an evening in Washington's Cultural Center.
The two had just left an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum when the suspect approached them.
Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents.
And he ran inside and yelled something. I couldn't make it out what he said. He just ran up. It was terrible. I don't know what. It was terrible.
Police say the suspect, 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez, ran inside the museum where he was arrested by security.
The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody.
One witness says she gave the suspect water just before his arrest, unaware of the crime he had just committed.
We offered him water and he was like, "Yeah, that'll be great, actually." That's when he reaches into his backpack and pulls out a keffiyeh and says, "I did it. I did this for Gaza."
The Times of Israel says the suspect was reportedly a member of a radical left-wing group that advocated on behalf of Palestinians. President Trump condemned the attack on social media, saying these horrible DC killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end now. Hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA. Condolences to the families of the victims.
I spoke to the President of the United States multiple times tonight on behalf of the President. His prayers are with all of us, all of the Jewish community, everyone in Washington, D.C.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement saying, "We are witness to the terrible cost of anti-Semitism and wild incitement against the state of Israel. Blood libels against Israel have a cost in blood and must be fought to the utmost." George Thomas, CBN News.
And our CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, we heard what Prime Minister Netanyahu said about the tragic shooting. What has been some of the reaction there in Israel?
Well, Ephraim, some of the reaction is personal, actually, personal for the CBN News Bureau. We were here having our prayer meeting this morning, and we had a guest. His name was Albert Wexler, and he's the head of the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast, and we meant to do an interview with him. And as we were discussing the tragedy last night and the assassination, he discovered that he knew the father, and also one of our bureau members knows the father as well, and actually the grandmother. I believe the brother works for another companion, good friends of ours, the All Israel News with Joel Rosenberg, and one of their staff members is the brother of who was killed. So it's a very personal thing over here in Israel, and for all of the people here in Israel, and as well as all the people affected there in the United States, it's a solemn day, a tragic day, and a time when people maybe are realizing how dangerous this movement can be, and how people need to be praying for protection for people there in all of the embassies around Israeli embassies around the world, and for the peace of Jerusalem.
Is there growing concern in Israel about growing left-wing violence against Jewish people?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is one indication that this can be a violent movement. We've seen violence on U.S. campuses with the Free Palestine movement, and so I think there's certainly definitely a sense of danger, and a sense that there will be increased security around embassies and around personnel. The Israeli embassies and the government typically and regularly send out dangers warnings to people traveling in different parts of the world based on intelligence that they receive. So I'm sure this is going to increase the security around the Israeli embassies in the D.C. and around the world for staff members.
Yeah, this just added pressure. Who knows what the fallout of this is going to be. The interesting part about him is he seems to have been radicalized by a left-wing group. He does not. He's not of Eastern descent. Where this goes and what the follow-up is going to be, I don't know. It's really sad, and the beautiful couple. Really, really sad. Thoughts and prayers for them. All right, let's check out the weather as we head towards the big weekend.
A weak front is moving over the top of our region, bringing showers before a drying trend into the weekend. So today in northern Oregon and southern Washington, a chance of showers, then clearing to partly sunny with highs in the mid-60s for Vancouver, Portland, Wilsonville, and McMinnville. Continuing down the Willamette Valley with a slight chance of showers, then partly sunny with daytime high temperatures in the mid-60s for Salem, Albany, Corvallis, and Eugene with a light southwest wind. A slight chance of showers across central Oregon, then clearing to partly sunny in low 60s for Prineville and Bend and near 59 in Sun River. Over in Boise, Idaho, mostly cloudy, then a slight chance of thunderstorms in mid-70s. Along the Oregon coast, decreasing clouds becoming sunny with daytime high temperatures in the low 60s for Coos Bay and mid to upper 50s for Port Orford, Brookings, and Crescent City, California. In southern Oregon, sunny for the Rogue Valley with daytime highs in the low 70s for Grants Pass and Medford and near 68 in Ashland. In the Klamath Basin, sunny with highs in the upper 60s and lows in the low 40s. Into northern California, sunny with a high in the low 70s in Wairika. More sunshine as we move down with daytime high temperatures in the mid-80s for Redding, Chico, and Sacramento with a light southwest wind. In the Bay Area, sunny skies with daytime highs near 77 for Santa Rosa and Napa. Sunny in San Francisco with a high near 66 and a west wind gusting up to 21 miles per hour. And today in San Jose, sunny and near 77. It's a look at your Thursday weather on the Dove.
And there's a beautiful shot of our valley. Still some clouds overhead, but very, very nice.
Some clearing into the weekend. It's going to be nice. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, whether it starts tomorrow or not. For a lot of us, it won't. But hey, do you remember the good old days when late night TV was entertaining? It was funny, and you didn't have any idea, what political party the host belonged to. Well, that all ended on this day in history with the last airing of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. On May 22, 1992, the curtains closed on an era. Johnny Carson, the king of late night, walked out to his desk one last time on The Tonight Show, his voice calm, his wit sharp, his presence steady as ever. For nearly 30 years, Americans had ended their day with Johnny's sly smile, his effortless charm, and a kind of comedy that brought people together. That final night, 50 million viewers tuned in, friends, families, even rivals, sharing a moment that felt more like a goodbye to a friend than just a host. There were no political jabs, no outrage, only laughter, gratitude, and a quiet dignity. As Johnny softly said, "I bid you a very heartfelt good night," the screen faded, and so did a time when late-night TV offered a gentle, unifying close to the American day.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that, he had David Letterman on once in a while.
Yeah.
As a guest.
Right.
And but Letterman went on to New York and did the other show.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of bad blood there, too, because he had expected to get the Tonight Show.
Yeah, Letterman expected to get it. Well, it ends up going to Jay Leno.
Right.
And what's interesting about Jay Leno is I'm surprised we don't see more Jay Leno clips around the internet and stuff. He was equally funny.
I think you're right, yeah.
Right now, you see a lot of Johnny Carson, but you have to look for the Jay Leno stuff. And I have to tell you, I've watched a couple of Jay Lenos, and they were hilarious.
Yes. Yeah,
he was very good.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was a little bit more like Johnny. Yeah,
he really was.
Yeah.
I mean, and what's interesting, if you watch some of those reruns, when Johnny Carson first had Jay Leno on as a guest, as a comedian.
Yeah.
And he's young, he's out there, and his hair's dark, and he's giving all these one-liners, know. And little did he know he'd be sitting in that seat several years later.
Right. Right. And you know how, the good old days ended? Remember, after Johnny Carson, it wasn't long after that we heard the national anthem, and then, what was that thing that went on the screen when they went to bed at night? It was not color bars, but it was the test pattern.
Oh, the test pattern.
The test pattern. Remember that?
Yeah.
They used to, TV used to close down at a certain hour each night.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Another guy that I thought that they could have selected to take over.
Who?
Was Steve Martin.
Oh, yeah, Steve, yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, they were all guests.
Yeah.
But if you go over to David Letterman when he went to New York, I think that's where the politics started to slide in.
Oh, okay.
Not that he was, I mean, he has opinions, but he started having more people that were more socially, politically driven.
And for some reason now, late night hosts really, for some reason, are
that's all it is.
They're camped on this political divide. I don't get it.
So Jay Leno, I thought Jay Leno was good. He's funny. He went on. He still does have one of the great car collections in the world.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And he's also turned out to be quite the husband.
Yeah, he's caring for his wife, isn't he?
He stopped everything, and he's caregiving for his wife, who is in some of the last stages of dementia.
Yeah.
Very loyal, very good and stuff. Okay, well, listen. Let's see, vanilla pudding.
How about vanilla pudding lined with Nilla wafers?
Oh, geez.
Little crunch to the soft. You know, I like those contrasting textures.
You really are nostalgic, aren't you? More than I thought.
Why not?
Okay, we'll take a quick break. We'll break.
The right cleaning company matters. Choose Dust Plus Cleaning and Carpet Care, a family-owned company proudly serving Grants Pass and nearby communities for over 25 years. We're passionate about delivering the best, whether it's carpets, using purified water for no window spots, or carefully washing solar panels. We're committed to superb customer service from start to finish. Radiant spaces from local professionals. Request a free quote today.
Chris Silva understands your home and your commercial buildings are two of the largest investments most people make in a lifetime. One is for your family, the other is to support your family financially. That is why Chris Silva Painting goes the extra mile to protect both homes and commercial buildings with proper painting preparation and high-quality primers and paints. Serving Southern Oregon since 2006, this family-owned and operated business has painted over 1,000 homes. Chris Silva Painting offers an industry-leading 5-year warranty that covers materials and labor on all painting projects work for both residential and commercial buildings, both interior and exterior painting. Chris and his crew are courteous, they are efficient, organized, timely, and clean. Chris Silva Painting also offers military discounts. At Chris Silva Painting, our mission statement is to bring Christ's heart and principles to our customers and our job sites. We do that with honesty, integrity, and hard work. We don't cut corners, we paint them. CCB number 176097. Chris Silva Painting, 541-890-3960.
One of the few things he asks us to do after we accept him is to further his kingdom. That's important.
When we give, the gospel is going out to reach people.
Bible stories are broken down in a way that children can understand it.
I think of the scripture that says, what you have done for these little ones, you have done unto me.
Watch the 700 Club, weekdays at 11 on the Dove TV.
Okay, welcome back. Happy Thursday as we head down the week here. Better known as Friday Eve, which is pretty much pre-launch for a 3-day weekend. Yeah. Good morning to you. Well, when your student goes off to college, here's the question.
Okay.
What worldview do they have?
Yeah.
Are they a Christian with a view of the world?
Right.
Do they have a Christian worldview?
Okay.
Do they have a biblical worldview? Okay, and a lot of people today, young people that are struggling, are trying to figure out, is the biblical worldview the one that I should use as the measuring of everything that I view in culture and in the world? Or am I a Christian who has my own view of the world that may be influenced by some of the things that I believe?
Oh, okay.
So Summit Ministries, I can't say enough about Dr. Jeff Myers and the work that he does, because he deals with college students and they take them on these camps and they give them the biblical worldview. Well, he had a couple of special guests on, and they're talking about the next level of how about helping the teachers who are helping the students to have the proper worldview. And here's a little bit of that discussion.
They will be embracing
a non-biblical worldview.
Absolutely.
And if they're not embracing a non-biblical worldview and they're not talking with you about it, that's a serious problem.
Absolutely.
If they are talking with you about it, it might be because they've even been coached on how to school your parents and make them feel inferior, inadequate, or ashamed for the beliefs that they hold to be true. So everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm sure I can relate to that. I've had that actual conversation on some topic of the day, DEI or transgender or whatever it is. But when you say you work with schools, talk a little bit more about what that is.
Yeah, you know, like Roger said, there's been tremendous hunger, tremendous need for a voice in the Christian schools to talk about how to impact this next generation in a way that would result in just flourishing in their personal lives and just the ministry to be extended. And so what we have the opportunity to do is to go in and talk with teachers, to train teachers about, to talk to them about the entire approach to shaping a child's worldview. We often, even in Christian schools, just like in parenting, think about that magic truth claim, that magic statement or verse from the Bible that we can use to say, oh, you're thinking this way, let me just kind of bop you on the head with this truth claim and you're going to get it. And there's so much more than that, because we know that a worldview is not just our thoughts, but it's our desires, the things that we hold in our heart, and our ways of being, how we live our life, the rhythms and the patterns and the things that we do. And so that is kind of new thinking for teachers who traditionally have been in the business of delivering knowledge. So we go in and we talk to them about all the ways that we can influence a child's worldview, to open that up, to help them not only just be aware that they have a worldview, but to own the fact that they have a worldview, and to do some deep thinking about it. Because deep thinking isn't really a prized process anymore in society. So we're taking this idea of Christian education as like, hey, you go to a Christian school and you go to chapel and you go to Bible, and we're saying, no. You can take everything you do throughout your day, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the athletic field, whether it's in the choir room, the band room, the art room, wherever it is, and we can make it about biblical worldview formation.
And I think the next step in biblical world formation is, how do you get your kids to hang on to that when they then go out of, say they're in a Christian high school or such, and then they go out into the world and they're going to university?
Well, it's easier said than done.
Oh boy.
I did hear one person, I thought this was a practical approach. As your students moving towards high school graduation, going to college, what is their interest? Do they want to become a doctor? Do they want to become a lawyer? Do they want to become a mechanic? Do they want to, do you want whatever that is? And then begin as a parent guiding them. What is the biblical worldview of what you want to do? Start with their interest, because their interest is where they're interested in.
Yeah.
And therefore there's already an open interest in the subject that they want to study. And then the question is, can you bring what the Bible says or the biblical worldview about that type of a career? At the end of the day, I think there's one thing we all have to take away. We're here for a purpose, and that purpose is to share Christ. That's it. We're here to spiritually reproduce.
Right.
Now, you could do it as a doctor. You can do it with a broken leg.
Yeah, true.
You can do it as a ski instructor. I mean, you can do it any way you want. But the end result here is you're to be spiritually reproductive.
All right.
I got some great guests coming up. We'll just kind of talk about this. This is going to be interesting. The leadership genius of Elon Musk. Is he a genius? Or is he just lucky?
Depends on who you ask. Yeah.
How did he go from South Africa to America?
Yeah.
Become a citizen, or is a citizen? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And become the richest man in the world at an age, I don't know how old is he? What's he?
Yeah, he's still a young guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
What is in that?
I can't wait.
I can't either.
All right, excellent. All right, well, you know, we love hero stories and heroes who perform rescues, especially if that hero is a Good Samaritan. And we have one. This Good Samaritan hero, though, thus far, has chosen to remain anonymous. A family is on a mission to find a stranger who saved 87-year-old Sabato Borelli's life after he went into cardiac arrest during a daily walk. On May 15th around 3 p.m., Borelli collapsed near Jarry Park in Montreal while out for his usual walk. A passerby jumped into action, calling 911 and performing CPR on him for about 20 minutes until paramedics arrived. Thanks to the efforts of this Good Samaritan, Borelli is alive and recovering in the hospital where he recently celebrated his 87th birthday. His daughter, Gloria Borelli, is now trying to identify and thank the person who gave her more time with her father. This gentleman or woman or child, I don't know who saved my father, she said. All they wanted was this person to have a chance, and he was given that chance. According to the American Heart Association and other medical authorities, for every minute that passes without CPR and defibrillation after cardiac arrest, the chance of survival decreases by about 7 to 10%. That means quick action, especially performing CPR, can make a dramatic difference in whether someone lives or dies. And in spite of a continuing search to find the hero, no one has yet stepped forward to take credit for the life-saving act. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to mention it, but I was out walking the other day. No, that's great stuff. Yeah. That's great. Do you know how to do it? Take the course, okay? Take with you 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. It's a great encouragement for you today. Praise be to the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. That is the gospel in a nutshell.
At Sweet Tea Express, we've got you covered. Order at the counter and our friendly service staff will do the rest. Burgers, salads, sandwiches, barbecue platters, sides, and more. Smoked, grilled, and served to perfection. Sweet Tea Express, breakfast, burgers, and barbecue.
Put your gold in an envelope, mail it. Hopefully you get a check. Nah. Father and son jewelry, bring your gold in, we weigh it, we check it, we make you the offer.
Or turn you something old into something new. Whether it's an idea, a picture, or a piece you want to duplicate, we can melt it down and make it for you.
If you find your perfect piece in store, trade your something old for something new, and you always get a little extra.
Visit Father and Son Jewelry, 5 generations of family in Medford.
Where big ideas grow.
Finding that next great series to binge watch is fun, but your neck, shoulders, and body don't count that as me time. Hi, I'm Tamara Miller, owner of Organic Element Spa, and I invite you to put down the remote, get off the couch, and schedule yourself some real me or we time with your favorite service, like one of our many massages, couples massages, or facials. Your health, safety, and comfort are always top priority with us at Organic Element Spa. We can't wait to see you. Book your appointment today.
From top home sellers in the Valley with John L. Scott
to making RV consignment effortless.
American RV, where Team Toner gets your RV sold fast.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is your watchful eye on the nation's capital. Every weeknight, covering current events, issues of faith, family, and freedom from a conservative Christian perspective.
Who is really upholding the law? And
Tony is the president of the Family Research Council and your leading source for what's really happening in our nation's capital.
That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Don't miss Washington Watch, weeknights at 6 on the Dove TV.
Want a great way to impact your day? Get the Dove's The Word for You today. An excellent daily devotional that will leave you inspired, blessed, and closer to the Lord. It's free for you from the Dove TV. Go to thedove.us to get yours.
Your watchdog of liberty in the nation's capital. Washington Watch with Tony Perkins. Weeknights on the Dove TV. Encouraging and informative. Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is your watchful eye on the nation's capital. Every weeknight, covering current events, issues of faith, family, and freedom from a conservative Christian perspective.
Washington Watch, thanks so much for joining us.
Bringing you up close to newsmakers, members of Congress, and prominent pro-family leaders from across the nation.
That's just the tip of the iceberg of the threats and the dangers that children are facing online.
Tony is the president of the Family Research Council, a former state legislature, ordained minister, police officer, and veteran of the Marine Corps.
Terrorism experts are sounding the alarm.
And welcome to the Washington Watch News Desk.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is your leading source for what's really happening in our nation's capital.
Well, this is a state issue. The federal government shouldn't be forcing these states.
Don't miss Washington Watch with Tony Perkins. Weeknights at 6, only on the Dove TV. Encouraging and informative. Tackling the tough issues facing America and our nation's freedom. That's Secolo on the Dove TV.
DAs around the country finding who they want to prosecute and then determining what crime they could charge them with.
You can't believe this is the country we're living in, that this is happening.
A bold half hour hosted by ACLJ's Jordan and Logan Secolo, taking you inside the battle of constitutional and political freedom, discussing issues that matter to you and your family.
This is just not the right precedent we want to be setting, even if we don't like Donald Trump.
This is just all-out chaos, and that's what could happen very soon.
Watch Secolo for issues that matter to you, addressing the problems of Christian rights in the workplace, school, the marketplace, and protecting human life.
I hope this doesn't have to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Be in the know with Secolo. Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday only on the Dove TV.
Welcome back. Well, a new organization that's been in the news a lot is just shaking everything up. DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, in so many ways, and its impact across the landscape. I'm delighted to have back with us today Edward Bartlett. He's the president of SAVE, S-A-V-E, which is an organization focused on fairness and due process on college campuses. We've had him on before. He does have a website, saveservices.org, and there's a picture of his landing site, saveservices.org. Edward, good to see you again, friend. How are you?
Hey, great to chat with you, Perry. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, thank you. We are. Thanks for your time. Hey, I'm just kind of curious, just on the college thing quickly. What do you think of the impact of the executive order of DEIing colleges, impact on colleges?
Well, it's a long overdue step to get us back to our founding principles of equal opportunity under law. It's called the 14th Amendment for people who have never heard of that. But again, we're kind of back to basics here in the legal landscape and in colleges in particular.
They respond to lack of funding, don't they?
Yeah, there is definitely that is a powerful incentive, and I'll say thank God for powerful incentives.
Okay. As you well know, the Department of Labor recently canceled hundreds of millions of grants, this including some of the grants that are tied to gender equality. And your organization is urging DOGE to investigate what you describe as neglect of men's issues. I know this is a real passion of yours, Edward. Tell us about it.
It is a passion of mine, partly because I happen to be the proud father of 3 boys, and they're generally doing well, but I know of many men who are not doing well in the world. So, and one example of that is that many men have dropped out of the workforce. Here are the numbers. They are pretty staggering. In the 1970s, 80% of men were in the workforce. Now we're about 69%. Wow, we're talking about millions of men who basically decided to stop, working, earning an honest wage, That's very troubling. And what's more troubling is the Federal Department of Labor, which is supposed to be on top of these issues, has totally ignored and neglected that issue.
You're bringing it to light. Are they listening?
Well, let's give them a couple more days or maybe a couple weeks before we jump on them for not responding. But we actually did meet with some staffers in the Senate earlier this week, and they were very concerned about this issue. So, yeah, we're getting people in the Senate to jump up and down. Why are we ignoring the woes and the challenges facing men?
Does your research point to a key reason why men are dropping out?
You know, I don't. That's part of the concern is that I'm not aware of a single in-depth, thoughtful analysis of the problem. So I'll tell you my theory. My theory is that our nation has created a narrative, let's call it a toxic narrative, that describes men as being abusive, lackluster, uncoordinated, you name it, sort of the Homer Simpson effect. And a lot of young men have internalized that toxic message, basically saying, well, heck, if I'm really not any good, if I'm really a patriarchal oppressor, why should I put myself out? Why should I bother to go to college? Why should I work extra hours or work at all? So I think it's this toxic cultural narrative that's been allowed to jump up.
I have to agree with you. I think philosophically you're spot on. And one key indicator of what you're talking about, myself being in broadcasting, so I'm interested in a lot of things that get, broadcasted. I have paid attention lately over the last several years how men are treated in ads. They're always seen as the buffoon. They're never driving anything. If they are, they're being yelled at. But at the end of the day, masculinity is being thrown under the bus because they're seen as buffoons.
Well, I think you and I are seeing the same ads. And there's one ad in particular. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but it shows a husband and wife, and the woman is shaming her husband that he hasn't bought life insurance yet. And it's not just sort of a polite reminder. It's like, he needs to be shamed because he just doesn't know any better. Yeah, I'm totally with you about that.
Okay. So in the meantime, women's rights are being trampled upon by all this gender stuff. Where's it going? What are we doing to ourselves here?
Well, it does. You're totally right. This is totally counterintuitive. The only way to understand this is to understand the extent to which Marxist ideology has penetrated and permeates our culture. Why do I say that? Because Marxism is all about, it's not just eliminate economic differences, it's to eliminate all social differences, including differences of biological sex. What better way to eliminate differences of sex than to declare there is no such thing as biological sex, it's only gender, and you can have your choice of whatever the number is, 52 genders, take your choice, and you can change it on a whim.
Okay, so there's something fundamental here, and that is we're starting to see the pushback. There's something fundamentally wrong, as an example, of young boys declaring themselves as girls and going into the locker room. Okay, it's against nature, and nature's God. And even people who maybe don't have a strong faith realize this is against natural law. There seems to be an exposure here of, no, we don't want this, we got to go back. The question is, do we know what we need to go back to?
We need to go back to the truth, right? What we've seen, especially in the last 4 years, is an assault on the truth. It's an assault on biological truth and basic human values, basic biblical truths. So yes, we have to go back to the basic concepts of what is truth, what is reality.
So what do you hope to do here, Edward? What's your plan of attack through your organization?
Well, in this particular press release that was sent out just a couple days ago, we want to ring the bell of the Department of Labor and say, hey, you've been ignoring the fact that men's labor force participation has plummeted in the last number of years. Why the heck have you totally ignored that? Not only that, we know that 92% of all workplace deaths befall men. Again, the Department of Labor has totally ignored that crying out problem of the excess male mortality in the workforce. So yeah, it's time to ring their bell and say, hey guys, it's time to get with the fact that we have to help our men.
Okay, how would you recommend the Department of Labor go about that?
Well, first of all, they need to continue their current effort to eliminate all of these discriminatory DEI programs. They've gotten rid of some, but there's probably more. You know, they may go by different names, but we have to eliminate DEI programs that are obviously not constitutional. The second thing is the Department of Labor currently has what's called a women's bureau, and that's fine, but the scope of that women's bureau needs to be expanded to address the full range of gender problems and concerns, including male mortality, males dropping out of the workforce. So that's our basic request. DOL seems to be caught back in the 1930s. We need to bring them up to date.
I'm sure you're aware you're going to get pushback on this, and so how are you how are you gearing up? And the reason I bring that, I mean, all of a sudden you're going to be the promoter of this dominant male masculine abuser. How in the world are you going to overcome some of that? You know what it is. You know what I'm talking about. What's your plan here, Coach?
Well, my answer is very simple. Gender equality for men. Gender equality for men. And I'll also say to your male listeners, viewers, be proud of your masculinity. Speak out. Speak your truth. Do not allow yourself to be silenced by the ideologues that don't believe that men deserve an equal chance in life.
Well, this is fascinating. Where can they learn more about or join your services here or your efforts?
Well, Safe Services, we have a website, of course. URL is saveservices.org. You've got the picture right there, saveservices.org. We are a policy organization, so we're trying to highlight these issues both to the media and directly to lawmakers, both at the state and federal levels.
As you know, the Department of Labor, former Congresswoman here from Oregon, and I don't know, have you met with the department heads yet?
No, we started meeting with staffers in the Senate. We did that earlier this week, and we'll continue to publicize our very deep concerns.
Well, I think they're legitimate, and I want to thank you for doing it, because I think, you know what, women want strong men.
Well, I'll add, women are our strongest supporters, and we could talk for a long time about that, but yes, we have gotten enthusiastic responses from women saying, you go, guy, we need strong men in this world.
Good stuff. Thank you, Edward. Good to see you again, friend. God bless you. Stay in the fight.
Thank you so much. Be in touch.
Hi, I'm the SOS Alarm guy, here to tell you about a great deal. SOS Alarm will not only beat any internet deal, but will install the system too. So burglars, beware. SOS Alarm for security and beyond.
Thousands of satisfied customers make Jim Clark's Consignment Country the most recommended RV consignment lot on the West Coast. Even dealers recommend us. That success comes from dealing with only the cleanest pre-owned RVs at the best prices, no high-pressured salespeople, and treating customers with respect. And we've been doing this in the same location for over 40 years. Before you buy or sell your RV, see why so many satisfied customers recommend Jim Clark's Consignment Country. Family owned and operated at 1630 Rogue River Highway in Grants Pass.
With the words, "Behold, a sower went out to sow," Jesus begins the legendary Matthew 13 parable of the sower, about God's Word and draws attention to the need for good soil in order to bear fruit. This question of good soil motivates and challenges every Christian parent. Can good soil be nurtured in the lives of our children? A similar question was asked by the ancient Greeks concerning virtue. Drawing upon classical traditions like the Trivium and the liberal arts, classical Christian schools are coming alongside Christian parents to do just that, nurture good soil and virtue. Now in our 8th year serving Jackson County, Knox Academy, the Rogue Valley's own K-12 classical Christian school, is relocating to downtown Medford in order to better assist parents as they educate their children. We are currently enrolling students for the 25-26 school year. Visit us at knoxmedford.com for more information. Invest in a future with a strong connection to the past for good soil, deep roots, and fruit at knoxmedford.com.
Well, welcome back. I've been looking forward to our special guest here today. Dennis Neal is the author of a fascinating book called The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. He's an award-winning journalist, media strategist, advisor to senior executives. He's the host of What's Bugging Me podcast. He's also was an anchor on CNBC, at Fox Business Network, and serving as a senior editor at Wall Street Journal and managing editor at Forbes. So we're very delighted to have him with us today. Dennis, thank you for your time. Good to see you. How are you?
Great to see you, Perry. It is a glorious, gray, rainy morning here in Brooklyn. And rainy, you have to be happy to be alive and grateful for it. You know what I'm saying?
You know, come to the West Coast, we'll take you fishing and chill you out.
I love to go fishing. One time I stopped thinking about business.
Okay, well, you know. Hey, by the way, it's been a while since I've had an opportunity to interview Steve Forbes. I'd like to do that again. How do I do that?
You know what? You got to write to him. I'm guessing it's sforbes@forbes.com or Stephen.Forbes, right? I try that all the time. I love that man.
I do too.
One of the very best bosses I ever had. I spent almost a decade there. And, you know, at the Wall Street Journal, where I started my career, I learned to love business and learned about business. But at Forbes, when I moved over there, I learned to love capitalism and what it could do for the world. And I learned to realize that the profit motive, rather than being something evil and suspicious, instead was a way to offer the world's people better sources, better products, better services. And it's worked pretty well.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I just think he's one of the brightest minds out there. There's just no question about it.
Forbes, yeah. He's been preaching that flat tax for a long time. But then again, Elon Musk, I feel like he's one of the best things to happen to America in 100 years, at least. I think we're lucky to have him. And I think he is stunned and stung that half the country has been brainwashed into hating him.
Okay, let's talk about him just for a moment. How did this happen? I mean, he's like, overnight, he's this person that's in charge of the world. And you wrote a book about it.
And and when I wrote this book, when I undertook it more than a year ago, he was this darling of everyone for saving the world. And then along the way to doing the book, Perry, it turns out half the world turns against him. And I'm wondering that if I had titled this book, The Leadership Failures of Elon Musk, would it be selling twice as well? Would it be on the New York Times top 10 list because they want to trash Elon? Same goes for my beloved alma mater, the Wall Street Journal. They hate Elon. And then I think it was yesterday in that Qatar business conference, he did a remote video interview and he said the Wall Street Journal, he wouldn't even line his birdcage with it. It's the worst paper in the world because the Wall Street Journal, hero of capitalism, lover of capitalism, has gone after Elon Musk because he helps Trump. And the owner of the Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch, pretty much detests Donald Trump.
Did this all start, Dennis, when Elon picked up and left California?
You know, that's not the start of it as I see it, because he left California after he already was having at loggerheads there, right? I think I've kind of thought about this, Perry, and I think there's 3 strikes against him. The first strike was when he bought the X platform. He was forced to buy that platform, basically, by the same Delaware judge that then later would vanquish his pay package that was approved by over 80% of shareholders. So he bought Twitter and freed it, and he let Donald Trump, a former president, on the platform. You know what? No social media platform, let's agree, should ever be telling some former president of the U.S. that he's not allowed to be on that platform because he said something bad. But meanwhile, the Ayatollahs of Iran are allowed on the platform. Okay, that's just wrong. So Elon put him back on the platform. He let thousands of conservative voices that millions of the right to hear and which were silenced by our government. He let them open back up. It affected the election. So that was strike number one. But then worse is he came out for Donald Trump. And that was strike number two. Trump's an evil, bad man. And then came strike number three. Wait a minute. You're going to try to cut $1 trillion of spending from government when we, the Republicans, and we, the Democrats, are feeding at the same trough? And when 7,000 NGOs in particular get 90% of the $300 billion in untracked aid that the government sends out each year, Elon Musk, you're going to dare mess with our income stream? Now we have to destroy you. Strike three.
Wow. Gosh, I wish I had you for a week. But let me ask you this. Do you know how he's handling this? Because he seems to keep going.
Well, okay, so my book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk, offers 11 lessons of Elon, one per chapter, that explain his success and that we can borrow for a better life. All right, rule 3 says, the highest nail gets pounded down, so strap on a helmet. That's what Elon has done. He doesn't care about that criticism. He thrives on it. He gets stronger with it. Rule 4, lesson 4 says, tease your critics and torture your enemies. And Elon is now in wartime CEO mode, and he is going after those enemies. And he said in that speech yesterday or Tuesday, he pointed a finger at the camera. And he said, and for those of you who paid for this and orchestrated this, we're coming after you. And he hopes to put people in jail. And so I think that he's been steeled by this. And at the same time, though, Perry, I think that he is honestly stunned and stung and hurt by this criticism. Because he feels like he said in this interview, hey, man, I've never done violence to anyone. But there's all these people doing violence to Tesla cars, threatening me with death. And he's saying, and for what? What is it that he's doing that's so wrong?
And the answer to that question is?
He dared help Trump the bad man. Oh. He dared try to cut the flow of billions of dollars in government spending that's round-tripping back to the U.S. and into the pockets of politicians and their families. He dared to call that out, and he's going to continue to do so because this man, while he's getting back to business and he's stepping away from Doge, he is unafraid, and he has the biggest spotlight in the world.
Is he out CEOing CEOs?
He's teaching CEOs things they've never learned before. I think his name's Adam Grant, an organizational psychologist, far more qualified than I am to comment on these things. He did an op-ed a few weeks ago in the Sunday New York Times. And he said that CEOs in America are learning the wrong lesson from Elon Musk because he's mean and he yells at people. And studies for decades have shown that companies produce better when they're nice to their employees. You know what? You bunch of whiners, you bunch of thin-skinned little babies shopping for umbrage, wanting to feel bad because Elon Musk is mean to people. You know what? If you have the chance to work with Elon Musk and he yells at you, you choose whether to be hurt by this. You could instead decide to be delighted by it, to laugh at this, to be happy to have the attention of perhaps the most brilliant being on earth in the last 100 years. And that's a different way to look at it, even if Elon says mean words to you. I'm dying for Elon Musk to say mean words to me because it would mean that we have a relationship.
How is he protecting his companies from being over-influenced by the very thing that he's being criticized for?
So one thing is he's going back to those companies and he's getting back to business, and that's a help because to have that leader, back there makes everyone kind of stand at attention and work harder. Another thing he has done, frankly, is he's ditching Delaware. He's moved all 4 of his major companies out of Delaware and reincorporated in Texas and Nevada after Delaware keeps messing with him and keeps offending him and doing things that are just terrible for the state. Dozens of companies are now leaving or looking at leaving. And sure, Delaware has 2 million corporations registered there. But, if 1,000 or so of the leading companies start leaving, that crushes your reputation going in the future. And they better do something about this and rein in a Delaware judge, Kathleen St. Jude something. Okay, this judge, Delaware Chancery Court, forced him to buy Twitter when he tried to back out of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Vanquished a shareholder-approved pay package because it was an unfathomable sum, $56 billion. And then the shareholders, knowing it would cost billions of dollars, went ahead, revoted again, and approved it again. And she derailed that package. And every other CEO of every other Fortune 500 company ought to be looking at that and saying, why the heck do I want my company there?
Does he go out of his way to protect his companies from DEI?
Does he go out of his way? I guess the most honest answer, Perry, is I don't know. But I'm a journalist long time, so let me go ahead and give some type of answer instead. Here's SpaceX, one of his companies. It was sued by the government, by a branch within the Justice Department that appoints its own judge and jury over failure to hire asylum seekers. Now, no business in the U.S. should want to hire an asylum seeker who might get thrown out. It's a bad investment, right? But we're going to sue him for that. And it's based on, now SpaceX got, I think it was a million job applications in a matter of a couple of years, right? One guy, a Canadian and French citizen, complained about, hey, they asked me about my citizenship for a job that SpaceX never filled, for a job that they actually did interview him, and then emails showed they didn't like his answers. They lacked creativity on some stuff. He sues, and then the government under Biden goes after SpaceX, demands millions of pages and documents and requests and all over this one complaint of a guy who was never even employed there. And that's DEI, baby. That's government out of control. And he's fighting it like hell, and he's exposing it in the courts. This guy has money to stand up to all the very same forces that have been bludgeoning the heck out of lesser lights.
Well, you stop and think about it, Dennis. He changed the social media world platform. He changed the auto industry. He changed the space industry. And then he took his entrepreneur spirit into the government, and he found fat in fraud. I mean, what's next for him?
You know what? Here's one big thing that people don't realize that I think I'm one of the first ones seeing. There's a synergy among all of these disparate businesses. They look like they're not related, and yet they are. And may I explain?
Please.
Have the X platform. It gets 6,000 posts every single second of the day, which is why the thought that entire news stories, by the way, have been done on, oh my gosh, the number of anti-Semitic comments over the last 4 weeks went up to 12,000. There's 6,000 posts a second. What are you worrying about? Okay, there's one. Now understand that AI, because he's got X.AI that he invented, learns from reading stuff. Wall Street Journal, for $250 million, just sold access to its stuff to OpenAI. Well, XAI is able to read on the X platform, which it bought from investors recently. Then you've got Optimus robots that are inside the Tesla car company. Well, they ingest through vision and learn thousands of things. They can learn from X.AI. Then you've got the Neuralink brain chip. I recently read a tweet from an account with only 2,600 followers. It's a Lou Gehrig's disease patient, and he says, hello, everyone. I've lost my ability to type and my ability to speak because of my disease, ALS. I'm talking to you now on this tweet, he's typing, because I'm controlling the screen with my Neuralink brain chip. I'm the third human being on Earth to get this chip. Well, incredible. One day, a Neuralink brain chip will be able to operate an arm from an Olympus robot inside Tesla, take it off, attach it to an amputee, give him a brain chip, and he'll be able to operate that arm. And he's going to do it because the chip is learning, the robot is learning from XAI and from Tesla car driving data that comes back. All of that stuff is coming together. And even the Boring Company with underground tunnels for high-speed traffic can hook in with Tesla's new idea of an auto service taxi driving, and where it can even grab your car when you're away and use that. I mean, all of this stuff is coming together in a way that none of us has seen before.
Oh, sorry, we can only get you one segment. I'm going to get you back, Dennis. You're fascinating. The leadership of genius Elon Musk. Where can they get the book?
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. And let me make a personal request, guys. Elon haters are just killing my ratings on Amazon, okay? 1 star, when this book deserves like 8 stars. So go on there and give it a great review, even if you don't buy it and read it.
Hey, I'm just curious, what do you want young entrepreneurs to get from this book?
You know what? Too many young people today are lost, and they shop for umbrage. They're looking for stuff to be upset about because they lack meaning in their lives. They're taking too little risk because they fear failure. Learn that Elon embraces failure, celebrates it. It's a necessary step on the way to doing great things. If you aren't failing, you aren't learning, and you aren't taking big enough risk. So always bet on yourself and double down. Also, lesson 5, most people are loafers. Work harder than you ever have before. Okay, and understand that it's better to launch and burn than to fail to launch at all. And understand that dream huge and be willing to spend years and years pursuing it, because Elon's dreams are even bigger than we know. He doesn't just want to go to Mars. After Mars, he wants to get to a moon of Jupiter, because what if Mars blows up? And from there, maybe out into the asteroid belt. This guy's dreams always go farther than we realize. The brain chip I just told you about, I thought it was going to serve amputees and quadriplegics and paraplegics. No, one day, only 10 or 20 years from now, he says that thousands or millions of us, of able-bodied people, will walk around with a brain chip in your head so that you can communicate faster with AI.
Do you put jalapeno on your cereal in the morning?
You know what? This energy comes mainly from me and caffeine. But I'd love to come on again, man. You said I'm fascinating, and I'm desperate for the approval of strangers.
Okay, we'll get you back. Thank you, Dennis, for your time. Check out the book online, Amazon, Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. There's a picture of the cover of the book. Thank you, Dennis. We'll get you back. Thank you, pal.
Have a glorious day, sir.
Okay.
Put your gold in an envelope, mail it. Hopefully you get a check. No. Father and son jewelry, bring your gold in, we weigh it, we check it, we make you the offer.
Or turn your something old into something new. Whether it's an idea, a picture, or a piece you want to duplicate, we can melt it down and make it for you.
If you find your perfect piece in store, trade your something old for something new, and you always get a little extra.
Visit Father and Son Jewelry, 5 generations of family in Medford.
Welcome to Rise Direct Primary Care. Imagine a healthcare experience where you're known by name, cared for like family, and treated with compassion. How is that possible? With an affordable, flat monthly membership, you receive unlimited primary care and minor urgent care visits. No insurance needed. At Rise Direct Primary Care, we offer a friendly, affordable healthcare experience where you get a whole hour with your provider. Located in Central Medford and accessible by phone or text, we can typically get you in the same or next day. We prescribe urgent care medications directly from our office, saving you a trip and wait time at the pharmacy when you'd rather be at home getting better. Personalized medical care with a human touch. Rise Direct Primary Care is all about healing the sick with compassion and keeping the healthy healthy. Rise Direct Primary Care. We're here for you. Visit risehealthdpc.com or call or text us 541-827-8603. 541-827-8603.
Okay, welcome back. One of the big cases out there today, and certainly stories, is the birthright citizenship that was done through an executive order with President Trump in eliminating those. So it's very timely for us to have back with us today Mark Miller, senior attorney there with the Pacific Legal Foundation, and you can go to pacificlegal.org. And this organization is out there on the front lines in your behalf. So check out their cases, go to their website, and support them, pacificlegal.org. Mark, good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Perry. Great to see you.
Thank you for your time. All right, so what about this case? Where's it going? What do you think?
Well, Perry, after today's decision, which we might want to talk about later, on the Catholic schools, whether they can be Catholic charter schools can be public, deadlock today 4-4. And so I bring that up. It just happened. It's breaking news because it affects the birthright citizenship case because it's a bit of a surprise. I expected the Supreme Court to say that public charter schools can be Catholic. You can't have charter schools that are non-religious and then not allow religious charter schools to be public as well. But the Supreme Court didn't see it that way. So with birthright citizenship, where I thought the court was prepared to say X, Y, and Z coming out of last week's oral argument, now I'm not so sure what these justices are really up to. It presents two very important issues, Perry, which you know. One is how much power does the district judge, one lone district judge, have to stop the president of the United States? And two, how much power does the president have to change the law when it comes to birthright citizenship? So this birthright citizenship case presents two very important and big issues.
Okay, so how do we unpack this? Do you think, what's your take on the birthright part of it? Where do you think that's going?
Well, I think President Trump has got a tough hill to climb, Perry. The court did not seem too friendly to his idea that somehow 150 years of the Supreme Court saying birthright citizenship in the 14th Amendment means if you're born here, you're a citizen. They didn't seem too sympathetic to the idea that that's not what that's not what the writers of the 14th Amendment meant. President Trump has an argument to make that the text of the 14th Amendment does leave wiggle room to see it the way the president argues, which is just being born here isn't enough, that you also have to be, the language is subject to the jurisdiction thereof, is what the 14th Amendment says. And what the president argues, and some experts agree with him, is that if you come here illegally, if the mother and the father come here illegally, they know they're breaking the laws of the United States when they come into the country, then they don't say that they're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, that they don't have to follow the law. And so effectively the president is saying, you're not subject to the jurisdiction, so if you're a baby born here, you're not actually a citizen. The justices didn't seem too sympathetic to that. They sort of made the point sort of implicitly that, well, if that's the way we're going to look at it, then what country are those babies children of? Are we going to visit the sins of the parents, if you will, the crimes of the parents? If you say coming in illegally is a crime, are you going to visit that on the children? But at the same time, you still have that same issue of one district judge, who's really one of 300 some odd judges, overruling the president of the United States in the nationwide injunction issue. So it's complicated.
Okay. Let's camp there just for a moment on what's happening with these district judges, Mark, because it seems to be obvious. These are political road bumps and speed bumps and all of that. But do I understand it correctly that the merit of a case could be appealed to the Supreme Court, but the jurisdiction of the district court comes from Congress? Is that right?
Well, Congress can take away the district court's authority to have anything to do with this. The courts ultimately are a creature created by Congress. The Supreme Court is part of the Constitution, but everything that comes after that is Congress creating. So the appeals courts, the district courts, all the rest. So indeed, the district courts can be taken out of the loop. But for now, the district courts do have the power, until the Supreme Court says otherwise, to overrule the president, to enter what's called a nationwide injunction, and just simply say, we are going to block the president when he tries to rewrite the law of birthright citizenship by way of an executive order.
Do we want the Supreme Court dealing with the jurisdiction of the lower court?
Yeah, I think, Perry, we absolutely do want to see the Supreme Court weigh in here. I think the court itself recognizes that for one district judge to be able to overrule the president, unless it's a very egregious situation, probably shouldn't work that way. The judges, are appointed for life, and they do have to decide what's constitutional and what's not constitutional. But whether they should be able to block enforcement of the law for the whole country is a whole nother question. From a question of jurisprudence, Perry, we want the trial judges to rule really just on the issues and the parties in front of them, so that other judges can hear the same issue and perhaps rule differently and provide a different analysis. And then the Supreme Court takes all different rulings and it harmonizes them. It decides, it can look at all these different ways of, peeling the onion, if you will, and decide this is the best way to resolve the question. But when one judge decides for the whole country that there's only one way to look at things, then the Supreme Court doesn't have the benefit of all the different analyses. So from a practical perspective, the idea that one judge through a nationwide injunction can make the decision for the whole country probably shouldn't be the case, unless what the president or Congress has done is so blatantly unconstitutional that maybe the judge should be able to, in the worst situations, block it. And Justice Sotomayor, to her credit, gave you a good example where maybe you would want a district judge to be able to block a law for the country, when she said, what if the president, not President Trump, but a future president, were to say he is seizing all the guns in the country? There, we might say it makes sense that one district judge could block the president. But unless it's that egregious, we probably don't want district judges having that kind of power.
So is this an ambiguity in the system, so to speak? I mean, doesn't the term district take on meaning here?
Yeah, Perry, it absolutely is an ambiguity in the system. And what's very intriguing about President Trump, whether you love him or you hate him, or somewhere in between, which I don't know if there's anyone in between, he pulls out the ambiguities in the system and he says these ambiguities need to be resolved. And he's got a particular perspective but on how they should be resolved. But his point is, this is ambiguous. And so the question of birthright citizenship, whether or not you agree or disagree that he can overwrite 150 years of Supreme Court law, he has a point when he says that the 14th Amendment does have some ambiguity. So whether it's nationwide injunctions or the 14th Amendment birthright citizenship, the Supreme Court ultimately does have to make that decision to resolve the ambiguity. And that's why the case is in front of them. They often don't want to resolve the ambiguity. They only want to resolve as little as they have to. But President Trump often doesn't give them a choice. And I would say that's to his credit at the end of the day.
I understand that. So one last question before I take a break. So at the end of the day, what's happening here, the executive powers are now not only being challenged, but they're almost being muted, right?
Certainly. If you want it, it depends on what we're talking about when it comes to the president. If we're talking about, say, his ability to remove people who have court orders to be removed, who are alleged terrorists, if you will, Tren de Aragua, or the other sort of criminal organizations that exist where illegals are here violating our laws and pillaging. There, he would say, look, the courts are basically interfering with my ability to execute the laws, which is the president's power. The executive branch is supposed to execute the laws as Congress has passed. Certainly, that's what Stephen Miller would say, sort of number one political advisor on immigration issues. Conversely, the courts would say, and I'm not trying to take a side here, but just to make both sides of the case, the courts would say, no, our job is to make sure that due process is being afforded. The president says, I am giving due process. These people are terrorists. And the courts and the parties representing these people who are here from overseas, they're saying, well, there has to be a court hearing on it. I'm going a little bit far afield of the birthright citizenship, but that's because there are so many cases where the president's powers are being hemmed in by the courts, and you kind of have to talk about all of them to talk about any of them.
So on the due process case, Mark, I'm a little over time here, but on the due process issue, there's that term, all peoples. And the question is that all peoples, everybody inside the United States, or does that mean citizens?
Well, certainly, Perry, we have understood the general concept of due process, the general concept of habeas corpus, which is the idea that somebody who's being held by the government has a right to challenge the government and say, you don't have the authority to hold me. That dates back even before the country, certainly in the Constitution, but it dates back in Western law all the way to Magna Carta, which was sort of the charter of our first individual rights in 1215, if you can imagine, nearly 800 years ago, well, more than 800 years ago. And so this concept that the president can be challenged when he's holding somebody against their will, saying they're not supposed to be here, that's fair, and that applies to everyone, citizen or not citizen. Because in reality, even if you're not citizen, what if you're a citizen and the government says you're not a citizen? You should have the ability to say, I am a citizen. I'm not a citizen, not a citizen. So, it's a bit of an angel's dancing on the head of a pin. And it's a question of how much due process you should get. To be sure, an American charged with a crime is entitled to a lot more due process under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights than a non-citizen who is being deported. But the question is how much due process. They certainly get some. Yeah. Even the terrorists who did 9/11, Perry, were entitled to due process. And so that's the question, is how much?
Okay, I got it. Let me take a quick break. Check out Mark's website, pacificlegal.org. Again, the Pacific Legal Foundation there on your behalf, working on these cases, pacificlegal.org. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Live the adventure with Hellgate Jet Boat Excursions. Discover your wild side in the heart of the Pacific Northwest with Hellgate's high-speed spins, stunning rogue river scenery, and incredible wildlife sightings. It's an experience like no other. Plus, you can enjoy brunch or dinner on the open-air deck of the exclusive Hellgate River Lodge, a place where families connect, friends unite, and the river brings it all to life. Visit Hellgate.com to book your adventure. Hellgate Jet Boat Excursions, where adventure runs wild.
Romans 1:20 tells us God's power is revealed in creation. Yet 2 Corinthians 4:4 reminds us that Satan has blinded many to the gospel. At the Life Outdoors, we've seen the truth of God, His eternal power and divine nature displayed in every mountain and stream. Follow along and let's wake the wild within. The mountains don't lie. Where there's truth, there's Jesus.
A ministry moment on the Dove.
Now here's this couple who says, we don't need that kind of a covenant so that we can escape and get out of this. And it is an unholy relationship. Two men together cannot be one flesh. Two women together in a sexual relationship cannot be one flesh. It is the man and it is the woman brought together by God, as indicated here in this passage of Scripture, that become one flesh. And that means that their relationship is not just physical, but metaphysical. In fact, you know that the word one that is used there is the word when God speaks about being one, for the oneness of the Trinity.
A ministry moment on the Dove.
Okay, welcome back. Mark Miller is back with us today, senior attorney there for the Pacific Legal Foundation. Can't say enough about this organization and what they do in your behalf. They're frontline warriors. You can go to pacificlegal.org as their website, track some of the cases that they're following and the ones that they've won. And let me say, if you feel led, support them because they're there for you. Mark, I want to come back to the headlines breaking about what's happening in Oklahoma on religious charter schools. This is so interesting. Basically, the Oklahoma Supreme Court said no to religious charter schools from receiving state funding. And that was appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has upheld the Oklahoma Supreme Court. There's a couple things here. First of all, the Catholic school that was involved agreed to meet all state requirements and open the school to all students. But that apparently didn't appease the court. And then secondly, how damaging is this to religious schools? Because it seems like it further puts religious schools over here fighting the requirements of public education. You know,
it's very frustrating, Perry. The school choice movement which Pacific Legal Foundation has proudly been a part of for years, has made tremendous strides in terms of making the point that if the state can fund non-religious schools, then why can't religious schools be funded too? We're all trying to do the same thing, which is teach children, the 3 R's. And so isn't it just a violation of the First Amendment to say we're going to fund non-religious schools, which at the end of the day is a kind of religion. It's a non-religion, but you know what I mean. But then you say we can't fund religious schools, in this case, a Catholic school. Oklahoma does allow funding of private Catholic schools in a sort of convoluted way, which happens in a lot of states. But what the Catholic schools were trying to do here in Oklahoma was say we can actually be a public school, be an actual just simply alternative to your local regional public school, your district public school, if you will. And we should be funded as long as you said, we abide by state rules. Otherwise, I think if you're a religious person, you might have to pause on that question and say, well, oftentimes he who pays the piper calls the tune, and there's a risk to that. But as long as the religious school says we can follow the state rules and also educate the children, shouldn't the parents have the right to choose where their kids are educated? Why should the state pick and choose winners and losers and say these kinds of schools we can fund, religious schools we won't? And there was a lot of hope that the Supreme Court in this decision would say that's correct. Most of the Supreme Court school choice cases over the last decade have been going that way. Here, Justice Amy Coney Barrett did not participate in the case, probably because the Notre Dame Law Clinic argued on behalf of the Catholic schools. We don't know why, but that's a good guess. And so the decision was 4-4. We don't know how they voted, but we can guess that the 3 Democrat appointees voted against the Catholic schools, and at least 4 of the Republican appointees did, and one of the Republican appointees, Chief Justice Roberts perhaps, or Justice Kavanaugh, switched and voted against the schools. And so it was 4-4, and that means the Oklahoma Supreme Court decision against the Catholic schools seizes the day, wins the day. Perry, I want to make one point for your listeners, because nobody would say it's the part of the country, of the world's school choice movement that the country would be surprised by. In Canada, Catholic churches do have public schools that are run by the Catholic Church, and nobody would say nobody would say that Canada is controlled by Catholics. It would be ridiculous. But in fact, there are Catholic public schools in Canada, and the parents can choose to send their children to Catholic public schools. In fact, my daughter-in-law teaches in one of them outside of Toronto. It's a total normal thing in Canada. Here, we seem to be hung up on the idea that somehow the Catholics or the Christians are going to put their religion into the children. Let's let the parents decide where the kids should get educated. It shouldn't be bureaucrats. It shouldn't be justices. We shouldn't be picking or choosing who gets funded and who does not, as long as we're getting a good education.
Is this a blow to school choice?
Yeah, Perry, absolutely. It's a surprising outcome. Chief Justice Roberts really has been a leader until now on recognizing that if you're going to fund private, non-sectarian, non-religious schools, you have to allow the funding of Catholic schools or Christian schools. The idea that it's a leap to take that logic that Chief Justice Roberts has endorsed and apply it and say there can be public schools that are religious, it shouldn't have been a leap. It's just common sense logic. The logic should flow. That if it's okay in the private sector, then it should, that states can fund private schools that are religious, then why can't they be public? At the end of the day, as long as the parents are choosing to send their kids there, what's the difference? But unfortunately, the Supreme Court appeared to get skittish. We don't know because they didn't write an opinion, but they appeared to blink on what could have been a massive win for the school choice movement. It's very disappointing.
Can it be appealed, or is this it?
This is it. And, Perry, I said it's a loss for the school choice movement, but more importantly, it's a loss for our children and for parents. And let's hope the court revisits this soon and Justice Amy Coney Barrett agrees to participate in that next case. It's unfortunate that she felt she had to recuse, give her full credit that she didn't want to appear biased. But it's our children and our parents who lose when we take away school choices from them. The kids need a good education. Catholic schools in this country, Christian schools in this country give an excellent education, and nobody forces religion down their throats. Instead, they teach them the 3 R's, and goodness knows that's what our children need.
Yeah. Boy, this is quite a turn today. One other quick question, Mark, before I run out of time. I want to come back to the district courts interfering with the executive branch. I'm really confused. What can the president, who can he deport these days? On one day, nobody, some days, some people. I mean, who's left?
It is hard to follow the logic of each decision. For example, either yesterday or the day before, the Supreme Court said pretty much almost unanimously, I think only Justice Jackson objected, that Venezuelans who are here legally, temporarily, can be deported. And so this is, to me, that was very peculiar, because here we have illegals who are not here, and I don't like to call them illegals, but they came in here illegally, whatever you call them. And we say that they can't be deported, but we say these Venezuelans who are here temporarily, approval of the government, now the government's changing its mind, they can be deported. There's an analogy, Perry, that I like in the immigration context. We want to shut the back door, but when it comes to the front door, when people try to come in legally, we should be encouraging that, because that's what America's been about. That's what the Statue of Liberty is about.
Right.
But here the Supreme Court is saying these people who came in through the front door, you can kick them out, but the people who came in through the back door illegally, maybe not. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it makes you wonder, what can the president do?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you come over the fence, it's wrong. You come through the door, we'll process you.
Yes, exactly.
So where does this end up? What do you think? I mean, some of it's national security. Some of it is breaking the law. I find it interesting that an illegal citizen can come into a sanctuary city, commit a crime, and be protected. I mean, they're illegal in the first place, then they come in and then they break the law and somehow they're protected. I think it's leaving us all on tilt.
Yeah, it doesn't breed respect for the rule of law when it seems like it's more being decided on an ad hoc basis. And so the Supreme Court does need to figure this out and make like a final decision. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see something similar to what happened in President Trump's first term, where the president was trying to say, I'm not going to allow immigrants from certain countries. And initially they were just Muslim countries, and they said, well, the president's being discriminatory against Muslim countries. Whether or not you believe that, what the president did in response was he said, okay, we're going to also block North Korea. We're also going to block non-Muslim countries that we consider dangerous to the United States. And then the Supreme Court said that was okay. And so here, I think you will see the president's legal team keep changing the executive order, amending the executive order until the Supreme Court says, okay, you got it right now. That might not be the best way to do things, but it's just a better option than any other option that we have.
Mark, you've been very generous with your time. You're a busy man. Thank you so much. We so value you and your organization. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out pacificlegal.org. There's a picture of their landing page. The cases that they're involved in and the ones that they won are very, very, very important. So check it out. If you feel led, certainly support them, pacificlegal.org. Thank you, Mark. God bless you, friends. Stay in the fight.
Thank you, Perry.
Since 1987, Four Seasons Nursery has been the gold standard in the green industry here in Southern Oregon. Tim Albert and his friendly staff continue to offer the best plants and most accurate knowledge to create your dream landscape. At Four Seasons Nursery on Crater Lake Avenue, you can let your imagination run wild with a huge selection of all things plant and gardening for both inside and outside beautification. Whether it's a flower for your window seal, one of our beautifully renowned signature hanging baskets,